that there was no such place. I had a vague idea that Rio de Janeiro was a place, so I kind of kept that in the back of my mind in reserve. And if all these other places fail, I could probably wind up, join the Navy or something and go to Rio, and I could escape for a few minutes from being black. And a lot of black people thought that way in the back of their minds. They were looking for a place. That's the gist of what I'm saying. But the racists, this thing called white supremacy, over a period of years, about 1957, while I was in Japan, I began to realize that you got to turn around and just grab it. There's no place to run.
One day after a deadly police raid in Rio de Janeiro that left more than 130 people dead, two very different stories are emerging. Rio state government is calling the operation, involving thousands of officers, a major success in its fight against one of the largest and most powerful drug gangs in Brazil. But residents of some of the poorest working-class neighborhoods where that deadly raid took place are calling the action a state-sponsored massacre. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports from Rio de Janeiro.
The initial death toll in the Rio raid numbered around 64 people. That was before residents say they found dozens of bodies in a hillside ravine. All night long, they've been bringing the bodies onto the main street of the Peña complex, one of the two favelas working-class neighborhoods raided by some 2,500 civilian and military police.
There's quite a scene here in the neighborhood. Right in the middle of the street, there are bodies in body bags, and people lined up on either side, hoping to recognize them, identify their family members. A man yells for the crowd to make space for the refrigerated trucks from Rio's morgue that's come to pick up the bodies. But as they're loaded and taken away, residents' anger surges. Jessica Marquez, who lives in the neighborhood, says the gun battle was terrifying, lasting hours. Residents in other parts of the city would have never been able to endure 10 minutes of what we experienced here for 17 hours, she says. Police say they encountered stiff resistance from the well-armed Red Command Gang when they came to serve hundreds of warrants. More than 100 people were arrested, nearly 100 rifles, and more than a half-ton of drugs were seized, according to authorities. Videos of the gun battle showed heavy firepower and weaponized drones used by the gang to drop bombs on officers. But residents, including Raquel Vieira, a mother of two and a house cleaner, called the operation a state-sponsored massacre. What we see here is practically the death penalty, she says. Why didn't they just take the boys to jail? She says that many may have chosen a life of crime and have to pay for that, but not like this, she says. Dozens of angry residents start chanting "Justice, Justice" as they head up the hillside of the favela into the wooded area where they say dozens of bodies were left by police. Luis Pessoa dos Santos, a local activist in the Peña neighborhood, says residents were blocked from retrieving the bodies, which he says numbered at least 70. They had to pull them out of the ravine and bring them into the main square. He blames the state for not doing more for Rio's poor when they were alive.
Ele nunca trocou nada social, nada para melhoria, para a comunidade.
They never did anything to improve our community, to give better opportunities to our youth, he says. State law enforcement officials say residents tampered with evidence and removed clothing from the bodies found in the ravine. Rio's police secretary Felipe Curi says there will be an investigation.
Mas deixando claro que todos esses inquéritos, os policiais são vítimas.
Let's be clear, the only victims, he says, were the 4 police officers who died. The rest were criminals. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro.
As Jamaica and other Caribbean countries take on the overwhelming task of working through the wreckage left by Hurricane Melissa, many are wondering how the U.S. will respond. Earlier this year, the key agency USAID that coordinated Washington's international disaster response was dismantled by the Trump administration. A few remaining staff moved to the State Department. NPR's Fatma Tanis is here to tell us more. Hi there.
Hi.
So, Fatma, Hurricane Melissa is one of the first major international disasters since the Trump administration dismantled USAID, right?
That's correct. And, you know, Juana, I've been speaking to people who worked in disaster response with USAID and also outside experts, and they say this is a test case for U.S. disaster response capabilities overseas since the agency was shut down and also billions of dollars in foreign assistance were cut. And while there have been other disasters since the administration took office, such as the earthquakes in Myanmar and Afghanistan, U.S. help was pretty much MIA, but this time President Trump himself said they were prepared to help.
Interesting. So what can you tell us about how Washington is responding to Hurricane Melissa?
So the State Department announced that a disaster response team was being deployed. They're sending critical supplies and rescue teams. Experts I spoke to said countries would be anticipating U.S. help with emergency food and getting aid to people in remote areas. Now, it will take a while for that help to roll out and also for experts to be able to assess how effective the U.S. response is. So we'll know more about that in the coming days. But there are already some signs that things are a little different from disaster responses of the past.
Like what?
First of all, USAID staff would have started preparing for a hurricane like Melissa months ago in early summer. They would have been topping up warehouses in the region with food, first aid, household items. They'd be working with governments and also U.S. embassies to do exercises for emergency management. And then a week or two before landfall, there would have been a dozen or so agency staff actually on the ground before the storm hit and airports closed. So these kinds of efforts have all been eliminated in the administration's cuts. One of the experts I spoke to is Brian Heidel. He used to lead USAID's humanitarian response teams for the Caribbean. And he said the State Department deploying teams is a good sign and the right step. But after all the cuts this year,
there is no way that the U.S. government is going to be able to provide a major level of support that they have provided in the past.
So then, Fatma, what is the role of the State Department team left over from USAID disaster response?
So there are highly specialized experts working on this at the State Department. But Juana, what used to be a bureau of 800 people is now a team of about 100 working on humanitarian aid globally. And they're spread pretty thin, and the destruction from Melissa is vast.
Yeah.
So another thing experts pointed out is that the State Department is bureaucratic. Its systems were not built with disaster relief in mind, and it can be slower to act. USAID, on the other hand, had amassed experience from years of responding to disasters. I spoke to Sarah Charles, who led the agency's humanitarian bureau under the Biden administration. And she said that many of USAID's systems came from learned experiences from the Haiti earthquake in 2010, where there was so much help flooding in from several government agencies and charities, but they were not coordinated, and that created a lot of chaos. She says after that, the agency developed a system that really focused on coordination with, the Pentagon, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, with United Nations agencies. They also communicated with diaspora groups in the U.S. who understand the needs of friends and family back in affected countries. And it's that fine-tuned coordinating mechanism that has completely unraveled with the dismantling of the agency.
NPR's global health correspondent Fatma Tanis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Why haven't you learned anything?
More than 65,000 infants, toddlers, and preschoolers may soon be at risk of losing access to Head Start.
That's the federal program that provides childcare and early learning for low-income families. And because of the government shutdown, a wave of local Head Start centers across the U.S. could be forced to close beginning November 1st.
For more, we're joined by NPR's Corey Turner. Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Layla.
So 65,000 children. Help us understand why this is happening.
Yeah, so local Head Start programs all over the country run on different federal funding cycles. And the National Head Start Association says 134 of these programs are supposed to be getting their next round of federal funding November 1st. They can't do that if the government is still shut down. And so without those federal dollars, these centers are now rushing to find alternative funding. Here's Tommy Sheridan of the National Head Start Association.
They are scrambling and trying to figure out how long they can keep the doors open. There is a ton of hard work, a ton of goodwill, a ton of dedication, but hard work, goodwill, and dedication don't keep your doors open.
For now, Layla, these unfunded programs serve nearly 1 in 10 children in Head Start. And if they have to close, many working families may have to choose between taking care of their kids and going to work.
Is there anything these communities can do short of waiting for the shutdown to end?
I mean, for many programs, the answer is a pretty clear no. They are going to have to close after Friday. Some may be able to stay open at least a little longer. A year ago, I spent some time in Michigan's remote Upper Peninsula, where Corey Holcomb runs a Head Start program, and it turns out it is one of these places that is going to run out of money in early November. Holcomb told me her agency and board of directors have found a way to keep the doors open 2 more weeks. Here's how.
Making use of some reserve funds, pulling in other resources with the hopes that we will be reimbursed. And we've asked for deferments on rent payments and some utility bills during that time to still provide services.
And I should say, Layla, by services, Holcomb doesn't just mean childcare. Head Start provides high-quality early learning backed by research, plus free health screening, care for kids with disabilities, not to mention multiple nutritious meals every day, which is extra important right now, with federal food benefits for low-income families also set to expire at the exact same time.
Wow. So, Corey, do we know where these closures might hit hardest?
Yeah, according to a map put together by the National Head Start Association, programs will be at risk in more than 40 states, but the places hit hardest first will likely be Florida, Georgia, Missouri, and Ohio. Keep in mind, though, Head Start serves about 750,000 children, and if this shutdown keeps going, more and more of those centers are gonna run out of money. It's also worth stepping back here for a quick second, Layla, because Head Start celebrated its 60th anniversary this year. And while it still enjoys strong bipartisan support, the Trump administration actually considered trying to cut the program from its budget proposal. And in the spring, they temporarily withheld funding from Head Start. So this shutdown is just the latest crisis in what's been a pretty tough year for Head Start and the families who depend on it.
NPR education correspondent Corey Turner. Thank you, Corey.
You're welcome.
What's the score, Mr. Barber?
St. Louis on top, 5-0.
What inning is it?
Bottom of the 7th.
You like baseball, do you, Anderson? Yeah, I do. You know, it's the only time when a black man can wave a stick at a white man and not start a riot.
How bigotry crushed the dreams of an all-black Little League team. This article is being read by an automated voice, generated by Everlet. Chris Lamb, Indiana University. The Conversation, John Rivers, John Bailey, David Middleton, Leroy Major, and Buck Godfrey. All teammates from the 1955 Cannon Street YMCA Little League All-Star team. Left Charleston, South Carolina, on a bus on August 18, 2025. After a stop at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, for a couple days, where their story is included in an exhibit on black baseball that opened in 2024, they headed to Williamsport, Pennsylvania. There, they were recognized before the Little League World Series championship game on August 24, 2025, 70 years after the players, then 11 and 12 years old, watched the championship game from the bleachers, wondering why they weren't on the field living out their own dreams instead of watching other boys live out theirs. When the Cannon Street team registered for a baseball tournament in Charleston in July 1955, it put the team and the forces of integration on a collision course with segregation, bigotry, and the Southern way of life. White teams refused to take the field with the Cannon Street team, who represented the first black Little League in South Carolina. The team won 2 tournaments by forfeit. They were supposed to then go to a regional tournament in Rome, Georgia, where if they won, they'd advance to the Little League World Series. But Little League officials ruled the team ineligible for the regional tournament because it had advanced by winning on forfeit and not on the field as the rules stipulated. A 4-team black league is born. The civil rights movement is often told in terms of court decisions, bus boycotts, and racist demagogues. It's rarely told from the point of view of children who suffered in ways that left physical and emotional scars. When I was a journalism professor at the College of Charleston, I learned how the presence of a single black all-star team was enough to cause one of the biggest crises in Little League history. In 2022, I wrote the book Stolen Dreams, the 1955 Cannon Street, All-Stars, and Little League Baseball's Civil War. The team's story begins in 1953. Robert Morrison, president of the Cannon Street YMCA, petitioned Little League Baseball to create a league for black teams, and Little League Baseball granted the charter. Dozens of black 11- and 12-year-old boys were selected for the 4-team league before the 1954 season. They played on a diamond of grass and gravel at Harmon Field in Charleston, a city with a long history of racial strife. In 1861, the Civil War began in Charleston Harbor, where hundreds of thousands of slaves had been brought to the U.S. from the 1600s to the 1800s. The field also wasn't far from Emmanuel AME Church, where 9 black parishioners were murdered during a prayer meeting in 2015. Little League Baseball barred first-year leagues from the postseason tournaments. At some point during the 1955 season, the best players were selected for the league's all-star team. Cannon Street YMCA officials then registered the team for the Charleston City tournament, which included all-star teams from the city's all-white leagues. Little League Baseball officially prohibited racial discrimination, but in South Carolina, racial discrimination was still legal. Dixie fights back. The U.S. Supreme Court had ruled a year earlier that segregation in schools was unconstitutional in the landmark Brown v. Board of Education decision, paving the way for racial integration. Few states resisted integration as fiercely as South Carolina, and no politician fought harder against racial equality than the state's junior U.S. Senator, Strom Thurmond. So when the Cannon Street YMCA All-Stars registered for Charleston's citywide tournament in July 1955, all the white teams withdrew. The Cannon Street team won by forfeit and advanced to the state tournament. Danny Jones, the state's director of Little League Baseball, petitioned the organization to create a segregated state tournament. Little League Baseball's president, Peter McGovern, denied Jones' request. He said that any team that refused to play the Cannon Street team would be banned from the organization. Thurmond let it be known to Jones that an integrated tournament could not be permitted. In the end, Jones urged all the white teams to withdraw from the state tournament. He then resigned from Little League Baseball, created the Little Boys League, and wrote the league's charter, which prohibited black players. The Little Boys League, which was rebranded as Dixie Youth Baseball, soon replaced Little League in other southern states. Within 6 years, there were 390 such leagues spanning most of the former Confederacy. It would be decades before Little League Baseball returned to South Carolina. Having won the South Carolina tournament by forfeit, the Cannon Street YMCA All-Stars prepared for the regional tournament in Rome, Georgia, where the state's governor, Marvin Griffin, objected to integration. If youth baseball could be integrated, so too could schools, swimming pools, and municipal parks, he said. Let them play. Little League rules said that teams could advance only by playing and winning, so the Cannon Street State Championship was ruled invalid because it had come by forfeit. McGovern decided against making an exception for the Cannon Street YMCA All-Stars. Most white-owned newspapers, whether in the South or North, had long stayed silent on the topic of racial discrimination. But the story of the Cannon Street All-Stars broke through. Editors and reporters may have wanted to avoid the topic of racism, but boys being denied the opportunity to play in a baseball tournament was too objectionable to ignore. On July 31, 1955, New York Daily News columnist Dick Young asked Brooklyn Dodgers star Jackie Robinson, who had broken Major League Baseball's color barrier 8 years earlier, about the white teams that had quit the tournament rather than play against a black team. How stupid can they be? Robinson said, I had to laugh when I read the story. Perhaps pressured by criticism, McGovern, Little League's president, invited the team to be Little League's guests for the championship game. So the team boarded a bus for Williamsport. They arrived the night before the championship game, which pitted Morrisville, Pennsylvania, against Delaware Township, New Jersey, an integrated team. The Cannon Street YMCA All-Stars and their coaches were introduced before the game, and the players recall hearing a loud voice from the bleachers. Let them play. It boomed. Others in the crowd joined in, the players said. Let them play. Let them play. John Rivers, who played shortstop for the team, told me he can still hear it now. After their brief moment on the field, the Cannon Street All-Stars returned to their seats and watched other boys live out their dreams. A photograph of the team in the stands reveals the disappointment on their faces. On the following day, August 28, 1955, the team boarded its bus to return to Charleston. It was the same date that Emmett Till, not much older than the players on the team, was brutally murdered in Money, Mississippi, for reportedly whistling at a white woman. The boys and girls who play in the 2025 tournament will forever remember the experience. The surviving members of the Cannon Street All-Stars, who are all in their early 80s, never forgot what they were denied. Rivers, who went on to become a successful architect, says this is the moral of their story. It's a tragedy to take dreams away from a youngster. Rivers told the Washington Post in 2022, "I knew it then, I know it now, and I've seen to it that no one takes dreams away from me again." Now there are some on the political right who want to bury America's ugly racial history. America has never fully reckoned with slavery or the decades of segregation, Rivers recently told me. It just decided to move on from that ugly period in its history without any kind of therapy, he said. And now they are trying to sweep it all under the rug again.
I'm getting in the elevator, and these two high school white boys tried to get on with me. And I just dove off. I said, y'all ain't killing me. I am scared of young white boys. If you white and under 21, I am running for the hill. What the hell is wrong with these white kids shooting up the school?
Schools are back, classes are in full swing, and in the U.S. that means the possibility of a school shooting is just a reality for students. On yesterday's program, we took you to a school in Minnesota to hear how it prepares its students for mass violence if that day were ever to come.
Can I have your attention, please? This is a lockdown drill. Teachers, please secure your students in your classrooms. This is a lockdown drill. Thank you.
And middle schoolers there told us that these drills are just normal to them. But should they be normal? I spoke to Jillian Peterson about this. She's a psychologist who studies mass shootings, and she is the executive director of the Violence Prevention Project, a research center based in St. Paul, Minnesota. I started by asking her if lockdown drills are effective.
Students will often say that they do feel more prepared. They will also say that they feel more anxious, more worried, and more fearful that a school shooting is going to happen at their school. And so those are the two things that we very much have to weigh against each other.
How do you do that? I mean, how do educators weigh the effectiveness versus the harm?
I think that is the question a lot of school districts are facing because we don't truly know. You know, there have been cases where we can maybe point to them and say, I think because these kids had drilled, they were able to get behind doors faster and lock them and maybe deaths were prevented. There are other cases we have point to and say, because these kids drilled in a certain way and that's not how the shooting happened, maybe more kids died than would have needed to, because there's really no way to truly prepare for every instance. And so how do you weigh that, the may or may not work, against the fact that these kids are getting really upset and traumatized by this? And then the other key point is that the most likely perpetrator is a kid who goes to school in that building, who is running through the drills with everybody else.
So then they would know what the school would do if there was a shooter.
Exactly.
Now, as a psychologist, you've studied the effect of these drills, right, as far as you can.
Yes.
And what did you come away with? What was your big takeaway?
I came away with concern, generally, that A, the most likely perpetrator is in the building. B, we're not totally sure that they work. C, we don't really truly understand what we're doing to the young kids. We're just normalizing this type of violence. You know, I really got into this space when my oldest entered kindergarten and he was coming home talking about just nonchalantly having to practice in case bullets came through the windows, right at the age of 5. And we do have more evidence that certain kids are more impacted by this, especially if you are already kind of anxious, developmental issues, if you live in a community where you've experienced gun violence previously. So in Minnesota, we recently passed some legislation that said you have to do these in a trauma-informed way. You have to make sure kids know their drills. You have to let parents know ahead of time. You have to let parents opt out if they don't want to participate, and you have to debrief with kids afterwards. Because even high schoolers will say, you can't expect me to rehearse for my death and then go back to learning a math assignment. I can't do that.
What are the alternatives? I mean, how do you protect kids in school without traumatizing them for something that may never happen?
if you're going to drill, do it in a trauma-informed way. 2 is you can just train the adults and then train kids to listen to adults in emergencies. And I mean, 3rd is just really thinking about prevention and what we know about who does this, which is the most likely person to do this is a kid in the building who we see every day, who's giving out warning signs, who's telling people they're thinking about it. So building things like anonymous reporting systems, threat assessment teams, those pieces, that prevention side is just as critical as training for the reaction side. We should teach kids crisis intervention skills. We should teach them how to, when they're worried about a friend, report to a teacher. And even things like how to be inclusive, right? Like how to make sure nobody's eating alone. We know that these kids tend to be really isolated. There's so many things we could be teaching kids to do to prevent violence beyond just hiding in closets.
Dr. Jillian Peterson is a forensic psychologist and the executive director of the Violence Prevention Project at Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Little brother, I heard y'all ain't hitting in New York. Word. I heard y'all ain't hitting in L.A. Word. I heard y'all ain't hitting in North Carolina.
4 years ago, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles launched the Mayor's Racial Equity Initiative, an effort to raise $150 million from the private sector to help the city in 4 different areas. The program is now winding down, and WFAE's Steve Harrison has spent the last several weeks looking at whether it's achieved its goals. Steve joins me now for a look at the overall program and specifically its efforts to bolster Johnson C. Smith University, a historically black school. Steve, for the last 2 or 3 years, the mayor's focus has been on the transportation sales tax increase that's on the ballot next week. Remind us what the Racial Inequity Initiative is.
Marshall, the initiative is a $250 million public-private partnership that's focusing on 4 areas. The 2 biggest are the 6 so-called corridors of opportunity in low-income parts of the city, and also bolstering Johnson C. Smith University. Then there are 2 much smaller areas, workforce development and bridging the digital divide, a program that's being run from Queen's University. The private fundraising goal was $150 million, and the rest was public money, much of which was existing spending that was rebranded as being part of the initiative and sent to the corridors of opportunity in places like Beatties Ford Road.
So what's the status update? How is the program doing?
It turns out this is a hard question to answer. The mayor and other officials don't really bring it up like they used to. And it's worth noting that much of the public discussion of things like race and equity have shifted to make those words almost taboo. The website for the Racial Equity Initiative hasn't been updated in what appears to be a couple years. An email address listed as the contact for MREI doesn't work anymore and bounces back.
So no way for people to contact the initiative. What happened?
Well, back in 2022, the person hired to run MREI resigned after media reports examined her past role in leading an Ohio state organization that was found to have a lack of controls and an audit. The mayor then went in a different direction and directed the private donations to be held by the Foundation for the Carolinas. And each of the 4 focus areas now have their own advisory boards made up mostly of the private donors, organizations like the Duke Endowment and Bank of America.
Steve, of the 4 work streams, Johnson C. Smith University has received the most private contributions under the Mayor's Racial Equity Initiative. What was the money for, and is the university on track to reach its goals?
So far, JCSU has received $51.3 million in cash and about $6.5 million in in-kind contributions. And that's a lot of money for a small private school whose program service revenue, the money it makes from things like tuition, is less than $30 million a year.
And what has the university spent that money on?
I sat down with Harriet Hobbs, who's a chief strategist at JCSU.
We have 10 success coaches that is strategically tied to recruitment and retention. And so we're focusing on that. We're focusing on hiring, and that was part of it too, hiring exceptional faculty and staff early on during that process. And so to develop innovative programs in business administration, data analytics, and pre-health.
But when those racial equity funds run out in June 2027, JCSU will have to find new money to keep those positions and programs funded.
And so we are having those conversations around sustainability. Everyone is aware that this is soft money and that we need a plan to move forward. And so we have some programs who have actively been seeking other opportunities to increase funding for their programs.
One of the initiative's goals for JCSU was to move into the top 10 rankings in the U.S. News and World Report's rankings for historically black colleges and universities. Are they on track?
So, back in 2021, JCSU was ranked 45th in the U.S. News HBCU rankings. And then in 2023, the school moved up to 26th. But in the rankings that just came out this fall, the school slid back to 36th. And the university is on probation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. The accrediting organization said the university did not, quote, demonstrate compliance with the agency's standards for financial responsibility and control of finances. Here's Hobbs again.
And so there is no mismanagement of funds, none of that. But it's just that, we just need to tighten up and do better in terms of how we process grants, how we process financial aid, and different things in terms of those three standards that SAC-COC found us in non-compliance.
But Hobbs says things are looking up. She says the university just enrolled its largest freshman class in a decade this fall.
And what does the mayor say about whether the MREI has helped Johnson C. Smith?
In our interview, Mayor Lyles didn't talk about the school necessarily moving into the top 10, but she talked about it surviving. Because remember, JCSU is a private school, doesn't get any funding from taxpayers, and we just saw Queen's University merge with Elon University, a decision made in part because of the challenges private universities face.
When I first came and started working with the business community, they asked me what the number one priority was, and I said that we should not lose the only HBCU in our city.
The mayor says she believes JCSU grads are now better prepared to get jobs after graduation. And then she pivoted to the university's football team, which has only lost once this season.
I think that has made a difference in some of the things that we didn't even think about. We were more focused on, well, let's get them smarter and let's get them jobs and all of that. But sometimes it's okay to say that we're going to give them an opportunity of life in a different way.
And, Marshall, for the record, the football team hasn't received money from the Equity Initiative.
All right, Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Marshall.
That's WFAE's Steve Harrison.
A new study out of the New England Journal of Medicine has released an alarming study. It found that black and Hispanic individuals are less likely to receive CPR from bystanders than white individuals.
Every year, more than 350,000 people in the U.S. are not in a hospital when they go into cardiac arrest. That means their heart stops beating. Only about 40% of them get CPR from a bystander.
A cardiac arrest can happen to anyone at any time. And just doing CPR, you can double and triple survival rates. And this is what we need. We need lives to be saved.
That's Catherine Y. Brown, the founder of Learn CPR America. Life Kit host Mariel Segura spoke with Brown and took a CPR class.
The first step to CPR, if you see someone unresponsive, make sure it's safe to approach, like there are no cars coming, nothing's on fire. Next, let's say the person is lying on the floor. You're going to kneel next to them and tap as hard as you can on their shoulders. Here's Catherine Y. Brown again.
You're going to say, hey, are you okay? You're looking for any signs of life. Do you see that chest rising or falling? Do you feel any airflow? If you don't see any signs of life at all, quickly call 911.
If you're the only person around, put 911 on speakerphone while you start CPR. But if there are other bystanders, tell one of them to make the call.
I like to say you in the orange shirt or the red shirt, or if you know the person by name, just make sure that they know it's them and that you see and acknowledge that they actually call for help.
Now it's time to start chest compressions. Kneel at the person's side, put one hand over the other, and press with the heel of your hand in the center of their chest.
Interlock those fingers if you're able. Your arms straight, elbows locked, push straight down as hard as you can. And we do it to 120 beats a minute. Two familiar songs. The cadence kind of helps you push, 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 staying alive, staying alive. Hey, Macarena.
The simple act of you doing chest compressions will give this person a better chance of surviving until help comes. There is another component to CPR, rescue breaths. You've probably seen this in the movies. You don't need to do them. Research shows that with adults, hands-only CPR is almost as effective as CPR with the breaths. But if you do want to attempt them, you're going to do 30 chest compressions followed by 2 breaths.
Place one hand on the person's forehead, pull the head back, 2 fingers under the chin, press your mouth over theirs, give a breath just until you see the chest rise, next breath, and then you're going to go back to chest compressions.
So this is CPR for adults. It's a little different for kids and babies. The American Red Cross does recommend rescue breaths for them. And for babies, you'll want to wrap your hands around their torso and do chest compressions with your thumbs in the center of the chest.
Many people refer to that as a 2 thumbs encircling hand technique.
You can find a diagram of this technique online. Also, AED machines can save lives. Those will analyze a person's heart rhythm and deliver a shock if necessary. You simply turn them on, put the pads on the person's chest, and follow the voice prompts.
You can find them in schools, public places, airports, sometimes shopping centers, and casinos, of all places.
The last thing I'll say here, I know some folks might be afraid to try CPR because they don't want to do it wrong.
Sometimes when I'm teaching and people say, I don't want to hurt the person, and I say, their heart has stopped.
So she says, even if you haven't had formal training, if you're in this situation, make an attempt. But also consider taking a CPR class. For NPR News, I'm Marielle Segura.
Look what they did to Martin Luther, bullet holes in our kings. And they wonder why we never believe. And they wonder why we never will leave. Nigga, we poor. Young niggas warn about that corner store, but the chinks on that. And you claiming that's your block, who you think on that? Quicksand in the hood and we gon' sink on that. You should think on that. Poison water out in Flint, they let them little babies drink on that. They don't care about us.
Most house paint, indoor and out, used to be made with lead in it until 1978 when the United States banned it because of the cognitive and developmental damage it can do to people, especially children. Those kids who might eat the paint chips or just breathe in the air with all those lead particles. But decades later, Los Angeles is still struggling with a toxic legacy of lead paint, a legacy that still poses a danger to thousands. Here's reporter Saul Gonzalez.
Outside an aging home a few blocks south of USC, a work crew is suiting up for the day, donning head-to-toe protective gear, goggles, and heavy masks. The men look like they could be responding to a toxic waste spill, but they're here for a kind of home renovation project, stripping a more than half-century-old layer of lead paint from the house. Michael Earlywine is the crew's leader.
So I have crews in going and taking out the lead-contaminated paint. And then we go back in and put a lead barrier compound on it and then repaint on top of that.
The work happening at this house is one example of Lead-Free Homes LA, Los Angeles County's program to test and clean up thousands of residential properties originally painted with toxic lead paint. It's lead that could damage the brains and central nervous systems of people, especially children.
Yeah, it happens to be one of the most persistent but preventable lead crises in California and probably the nation.
That's Janet Scully, program manager for Lead-Free Homes LA.
We're talking about homes that were primarily built before 78, but homes that were built before 1951 have higher concentrations of lead in the paint. And we've actually mapped out these areas where we see a lot of older homes in low-income neighborhoods where there's lots of kids under the age of 6 who are the most susceptible.
The lead cleanup effort, which is free to selected participants, is funded through a historic 2019 settlement between 10 California counties and cities and the country's leading paint manufacturers, like Sherwin-Williams. More than a third of the $305 million settlement, $133 million, went to LA County. Along with lead remediation, part of the money has been used for a public outreach campaign to contact people who might be living in lead-contaminated properties, like Merle Guzman, who resided in a problem Boyle Heights house and appears in an LA County video.
I purchased a home and my son was born a couple months after. We didn't know there was lead or anything like that. But when I took him to get tested, his lead came out positive in his finger. It's scary. It's scary to know that your child has something and you're not aware of it.
When it announced its lead paint remediation program in 2019, LA County said it would clean up and repaint up to 5,000 homes. But it looks like only about half of that number will be completed before settlement funds are exhausted. Janet Scully with Lead Free Homes LA blames a variety of factors, from costly work stoppages during the COVID pandemic to higher than expected labor and material costs.
It costs so much more to do that work now. So average, we spend about $35,000 on each unit that we remediate. It's probably at least $10,000 more per unit than it was when we initially started the program.
Officials acknowledge that when the settlement funds are spent, they'll have just scratched the surface of LA County's wider lead paint problem. Back at the home project site near USC, lead cleanup contractor Michael Earlywine says when he drives around older LA neighborhoods, he sees problem homes everywhere.
You see so many over time, you're just like, oh, that house has lead, and that house for sure has lead. A telltale sign is usually wood siding, wood windows, and deteriorated paint.
Looking ahead, there could be less help coming from the federal government in the fight to protect kids from lead. That's because in April, the Trump administration fired the entire staff of the CDC's Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program. For KCRW, I'm Saul Gonzalez.
New York City's black voters have traditionally been key to winning citywide elections, but Zohran Mamdani defied political wisdom by winning the Democratic mayoral primary without a black majority. WNYC's Elizabeth Kim reports on how the 34-year-old Queens Assembly member's candidacy is sparking conversations about gentrification and race.
Renee Collymore has watched the Brooklyn neighborhood of Clinton Hill cycle from a middle-class enclave of black homeowners to a casualty of the crack epidemic to one of the most desirable places to live in the borough. I meet her on a tree-lined block of stately brownstones and immediately spot the one that belongs to her family. I give her a call.
Hi, Renee. I think I'm here. Is your house the one with the Eric Adams sign? Okay, I'm outside.
She's actually waiting for me behind the wheel of her white Mercedes.
All right, so you gonna take me on a tour?
Yes. They purchased this house here where you just saw in like late 50s, 60s, 50, but they bought it for $6,000. And that brownstone today is appraised for $4 million.
Collymore is very active in local politics. In 2021, she ran for the city council. She didn't win, but when residents were upset about a nearby migrant shelter last year, she was the one who arranged a meeting between her neighbors and Mayor Adams.
He came. He was by himself. And when he walked in, everybody was just staring at him because they couldn't believe it.
But Collymore is a dying breed in this affluent and racially diverse section of Brooklyn. She's a black moderate Democrat who opposes Zohran Mamdani and everything he represents. That includes his membership in the Democratic Socialists of America.
Their agenda is to take over New York City.
His signature campaign policies.
Free buses? There's no such thing as free buses. Who's going to pay for that? It's going to be us. It's going to be the people.
And his support in gentrifying neighborhoods like Clinton Hill, where Mamdani won over 60% of the vote in some areas.
Every black person knows if there's ever a black community, when white people start moving into the neighborhood, rent goes up.
If that sounds familiar, that's because Mayor Eric Adams is saying the same thing.
Who is his base of support? Gentrifiers. Gentrifiers have raised the rent in the city and disrespected communities for far too long, and he's the king of the gentrifiers.
After dropping out of the race, Adams is endorsing Andrew Cuomo as his successor.
Well, you criticized Andrew and you called him names. You know what? And he called me names. But you know what? Now it's time to fight for the family.
Cuomo edged out Mamdani in majority black neighborhoods, and he's hoping for a repeat. The former governor is framing his strategy this way.
We're going to get the Latino vote, we're going to get the black vote, we're going to get the white vote, we're going to get every New Yorker who's a real New Yorker.
A real New Yorker. Christina Greer, Fordham University political science professor, says this kind of political message is a tale as old as time.
And if you hear the messaging enough and you're in this scarcity mode, then you're more receptive to that type of messaging.
This year's mayoral race represents a shift in the balance of political power between the Democratic establishment, represented by the likes of Cuomo and Adams, and the party's grassroots, which fueled Mamdani's upset primary win. That shifting dynamic has prompted soul-searching among politically active residents of many gentrifying black neighborhoods. Suddenly, black Democrats are worried they don't have the influence they once did. Non-Hispanic black residents declined by more than 6% between 2000 and 2020, according to census data. A Quinnipiac poll last month showed Mamdani winning support from 48% of black voters compared to Cuomo at 34%. And Mamdani is seeking to increase his margin. Over the weekend, he spoke at the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, where his message of affordability received applause.
So today, you will hear many politicians who will say this is the greatest city in the world. But what good is that if you cannot afford to live here?
Still, the 34-year-old Mamdani is unfamiliar to older black voters. At a recent event in Brooklyn, an audience of over 100 black progressives filed into a community center to hear from the candidate.
Mamdani is somewhat exotic to some folks. I hate to use that term, but I got to be honest.
Roger Green is a former Brooklyn State Assembly member who moderated the event.
But as he's begun to move around and meet with other people, I think it's changing.
The city's second black mayor was viewed as a watershed moment for black leaders.
I won't be just another black face in a high place, but a person that's willing to do the job in a real way.
But Green, who served as an important ally for the city's first black mayor, David Dinkins, argues that Adams and others haven't delivered for black New Yorkers.
Head of the court system is black. Lieutenant governor is black. The Speaker of the Assembly is black. The majority leader of the Senate is black. The Speaker of the City Council is black. The mayor is black. Public advocate's black. And we still are marginalized.
Whether Mamdani can advance the agenda for black residents is an open question for some who worry that his support comes from neighborhoods where liberal white voters have displaced black residents. At the forum, Mamdani receives a polite but not rousing reception.
I know that there were progressives in that room who were undecided because they were saying, basically, look, we don't want to see another example of white political hegemony controlling our communities either.
In East Harlem, I meet 38-year-old Brandon Lloyd Adams. He runs 2 bakeries started by his father called Lloyd's Carrot Cake. It's a New York City institution. Although he voted for Mamdani in the primary, some of the progressives' policies make him nervous.
I'm all for, having fair wages and things like that, but, you hear a $30 minimum wage and it's like, how do you survive on something like that? It's kind of scary to think about.
The black business owners I spoke to seem worried about the rules changing after they've worked hard to build generational wealth. Adams, the bakery owner, tells me he doesn't know who he'll vote for.
As a black person, there are a lot of different aspects that I have to consider. And, it's going to be a game time decision for me, honestly.
Back in Brooklyn, Collimore tells me she's also torn. She's turned off by Cuomo's sexual harassment scandal. Up until recently, she was holding out hope that Adams might change his mind and get back in the race.
This is going to be a problem. I know it's going to be a problem because, we're not going to have any representation in City Hall.
Mamdani has said City Hall should, quote, look like the city that it serves. In a city where their numbers are declining, that may be exactly what worries black New Yorkers. Elizabeth Kim, WNYC News.
Shortage of white people lately. I ain't seen no white folks no more. Y'all stop fucking? White folks into yoga. You can't get no nut doing no yoga. You got to get the pussy. They stopped fucking because some rich white man told them. Said, "But come on, cut the crap. Jesus Christ, there's too many people on earth. I have no place to ride my horsey."
Families around the world are having fewer children as people make different decisions about their lives. That is a story we have been covering all week in NPR's Population Shift series. There's been an especially steep drop in fertility rates in western U.S. states, where communities have also seen a big jump in the cost of housing. The Mountain West News Bureau's Hannah Merzbach reports from Wyoming.
A sea of toddlers throw around colorful blocks and balls at an indoor play center in the Wyoming state capital of Cheyenne. 21-year-old Grace Moreno is here with her 11th-month-old, who's dressed in pajamas with little fire trucks on them.
It's the only free place, so it's worth it.
Finances are tight for Moreno and her husband. They moved here from Texas while pregnant so her husband could work a higher-paying electrician job. But now with their baby boy, paychecks seem to disappear.
Our rent in Texas was like $800. Here it's like $1,775.
Rent is their biggest cost. Then $300 a week on groceries, $100 on formula, car payments, and paying for their son's delivery.
I remember sitting there looking at like a stack of mail, probably like maybe 3 inches tall, hospital bills, ER bills. I looked at my husband, I was like, I don't ever want to do this again.
Just 6 weeks after giving birth, Moreno decided to get her tubes tied. She once thought she'd have multiple kids.
I was kind of like, oh my gosh, my mom was right. Like, this is too expensive.
Only having one kid means Moreno's family can save a couple $100s a month for a mortgage, so their son can someday have a backyard. At the moment, though, interest rates are still relatively high.
Like, it's not only are homes more expensive, but then add, a 7% rate on top of that.
Emily Harris, a demographer at the University of Utah, says Wyoming's fertility rate is just above the national average, but still too low to replace the state's population. But like many Western states, Wyoming's population is growing. Lots of people are moving to the region to escape bigger cities and for an outdoorsy quality of life, which is driving up home costs. Harris says things like childcare costs and generational values also play into people's childbearing decisions, and that they're definitely changing.
We have this idea of like the nuclear family and, you need to get married and then you buy a home and then you have children. And really over the last decade or two, that kind of timeline has been halted and kind of rearranged.
Some states are passing laws aimed at easing housing costs for young families, but not Wyoming. Trey Sherwood is a Democratic state lawmaker here.
The biggest barrier to addressing this housing crisis is really convincing my colleagues that the government has a role to play.
Progressives have pushed for a state fund to help build more affordable housing. The Republican supermajority says that would just gum up the wheels of the free market. They say bills they passed to restrict abortion access, allow nannies to care for more children, and ease property taxes are family-friendly policies. But Wyoming couples like Reese Lane and Sean Thornton say it's just too expensive to have kids now.
Sean and I started dating, and he said, I don't know, I think I want to have like 6 or 7 kids.
But as we went through like more and more financial struggles, I guess, eventually it came to like, yeah, I think we can have like 1 or 2.
The state university employees spent their 20s struggling to pay rent in tiny apartments. At age 30, they finally bought this house.
I think that's when we started to realize it might be too late. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to have children.
Lane says it's heartbreaking to not have enough money to give even one kid a full life, but also freeing. For now, they're focused on their fur babies, a Pomeranian and a Shih Tzu mix, who are dressed in matching bandanas with fall leaves.
They're 100% little babies. They're so spoiled.
For NPR News, I'm Hannah Merzbach in Laramie, Wyoming.
The Delectable Negro.
Human Consumption and Homoeroticism Within U.S. Slave Culture by Vincent Woodard.
2 federal judges say the government must keep funding SNAP food benefits, but it's unclear when or how that will start. Millions of Americans could still be without enough money for meals, and it could also be devastating for thousands of businesses. As NPR's Tovia Smith reports, some grocery stores say SNAP benefits account for more than half their sales.
Teresa Rios came into the grocery store this week with a shorter shopping list than usual and paying even more attention than usual to price.
This here, this is $2.19 and this is $1.59, so I'm going to buy this.
Rios is a regular here at the Save-A-Lot store in Springfield, Massachusetts, but once she heard that her food assistance might soon be cut off or reduced, she started spreading her business around.
I'm at the point where I am shopping for deals at 3 different stores. So I'll come here because this is cheaper than Stop and Shop, but some of the items at Price Right are cheaper than here. And Walmart is like the cleaning stuff. That's cheaper over there at Walmart. I get the Walmart brand. I just shop around.
Rios says she's also skipping some items altogether as she has switched to cheaper meals for herself and the 3 young grandchildren she cares for.
I'm not going to be able to get the kind of cereal that they're like, and they'll have to settle for what I can give them.
She's not alone in her penny pinching, and it's all adding up to trouble for some grocery businesses. There are 250,000 retailers authorized to take SNAP benefits, but the most vulnerable are those like Save-A-Lot, where SNAP purchases make up 65% of sales. Already, manager Jose Pajares says those sales have started to dry up.
Yes, I see less customers every day because they're afraid to spend all the money they have, for the whole month. So scary.
Pajares says he's been ordering less and less stock for the store, and he's dropping prices to try and boost sales. But he still ends up with meat and produce languishing on the shelf until its expiration date.
See, we don't sell, we have to throw it out. Every day we throw out things,
Even in the best of times, grocery store profit margins are razor thin, and now all the more so due to tariffs, for example. The owner of this Save-A-Lot, Anthony Pena, also owns a few other grocery stores that are far less dependent on SNAP business, so he can weather a dip in sales, at least for a bit, he says, but not for long.
After 1, maybe 2 months, I start to think about the nuclear options is what we call it, having to think about closing the store.
For smaller supermarket grocers, challenges like SNAP reductions can have a significant impact on profitability, which unfortunately can put some stores and lots of jobs in jeopardy.
But Scott Moses, an investment banker with Solomon Partners who specializes in the grocery business, says grocery giants like Walmart may well gain if SNAP recipients can't count on their full benefits.
A significant amount of customers are going to trade down to what they perceive to be lower price operators. And net Walmart will likely come out ahead.
Back at Save-A-Lot, where the outlook is bleaker, owner Anthony Pena worries that his sales slump will only get worse for him and his suppliers.
For example, the bread guy or the guy who delivers eggs or milk to the store, instead of delivering 100 units, now he's going to deliver 25 units, 75 units less. That's when things get a little bit more complicated.
And of course, staff here are acutely aware their jobs are also on the line. Already, cashiers are just standing around during what is supposed to be their busy hours.
I'm worried because if customers aren't coming because they don't get food stamps, our jobs are at risk.
Cashier Stephanie Hernandez is working here to support her 11-year-old and twin 1-year-olds.
If I don't work, how will I pay my bills?
It could be a double blow for Hernandez. She gets SNAP benefits herself, and in a worst-case scenario, she could end up losing food assistance and her job. Tovia Smith, NPR News, Springfield, Massachusetts.
So, these events that keep coming up, instead of just reacting, dealing with them one at a time and being shocked each time we have another event that surfaces that is brought to our attention, we need to function from the position of an analysis that clarifies we are in a total system structure of racism, white supremacy, and that is why we are seeing the kinds of behaviors from individuals, be it Donald Sterling or be it George Zimmerman or any of the other cases that come to our attention. There is a reason that these cases exist. And I want to also talk about, in this case, they talked about mental health, but also gun control. And we have to begin to understand, I say you can't understand the gun mania if you don't understand racism, white supremacy. The gun is the answer to conscious and or subconscious, the answer, the response to the white collective feeling they can be genetically annihilated by black genetic material. And the gun is a great equalizer. I encourage everybody to get a copy of the ISIS papers and read.
For decades, the image of gun ownership in America was white, rural, and Republican. Well, that has been changing, according to gun clubs, trainers, Second Amendment advocates, and researchers. They say more liberals, people of color, and LGBTQ people have been buying guns for years, especially since last year's election. NPR's Frank Langfitz spoke with some of them to find out why. His story was based on more than 30 interviews. And a warning, it includes the sound of gunfire.
Charles grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in the middle of housing projects. This is back in the 70s. His mother, deeply religious, forbid guns of any kind.
So I couldn't even play with a water gun. And I remember vividly summer times when my friends would have water gun fights and I couldn't participate.
Charles, who's black, now works as a doctor in Maryland. He comes to this shooting range to practice every week with his new gun.
This is a Smith & Wesson 380, and then my next gun will be the Glock, and I already have a shotgun.
Charles said he decided to buy a gun after the Trump administration did things that scared him. The arrest of a foreign student who criticized her university's policy on Israel, the handcuffing of a U.S. senator. Charles worries ordinary citizens like him could eventually be targeted.
What I'm talking about is protecting myself from a situation where there may be some kind of chaotic civil unrest and the streets become something we don't recognize.
And that civil unrest that you expect would be triggered by the president or the administration through rhetoric?
He has it all. He could dispatch citizens or the government. It doesn't matter. He could do both. And I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. What I'm saying is none of this is out of the question any longer.
Charles and some others interviewed for this story asked to be identified only by their first names. They fear retaliation from the Trump administration. Charles has a 19-year-old daughter named Charlie. She's on the tallish side and joins her dad for gun training each week.
I need to practice my headshots. Because of my height, it does make it harder.
Charlie says she fears for her safety because of her race and gender. The day after the election, a man drove onto her college campus and hurled racial slurs at black students.
Some people, they hate us so much that they really try to make it known how much we're not wanted here.
You mean black people?
Yes, especially black people, women, and also I feel like who's targeted now is just liberals because of Trump's second term.
White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson dismissed NPR's reporting for this story as, quote, disingenuous and biased, and a reason why the network no longer receives federal funding. President Trump has blamed what he calls the radical left for political violence. He cited his near assassination last year and the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals.
Many liberals who spoke to NPR say it's the president who demonizes others, whether it be undocumented immigrants.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
Or political opponents.
We pledge to you that we will root out
The communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country, that lie and steal and cheat on elections and will do anything possible. They'll do anything, whether legally or illegally, to destroy America and to destroy the American dream.
I'm David Phillips, and I'm on the training team for the Liberal Gun Club.
The Liberal Gun Club has chapters in more than 30 states. It provides a haven for liberals to train and learn about guns.
Since the second inauguration of Trump, we have seen an incredible increase in interest in training with firearms. The concern is about the supporters of the right wing who feel that they have been given permission to run roughshod, at least, if not commit outright violence against people they don't like.
Phillips says club membership has grown by 2/3 since November, from 2,700 members to 4,500. Requests for training have quintupled. Gun clubs with similar membership say they've been seeing the same thing.
Hey folks, as everyone knows, there's been a huge surge in fear and panic since the election, and we've been booked out to September for individuals wanting to take our Pistol 101 class.
We have seen an increase of membership across our chapters of around 40%.
I've never seen a surge like this before.
That was Tom Nguyen, who runs the LA Progressive Shooters Gun Club, speaking just a few weeks after Trump's inauguration, followed by a woman named Hope, who helps lead the Socialist Rifle Association, and Thomas Boyer, with the San Francisco chapter of the Pink Pistols. Their motto, armed gays don't get bashed. Even traditional Second Amendment groups acknowledge more liberals are seeking gun training out of fear. Taylor Rhodes works with the National Association for Gun Rights.
It's definitely common knowledge at this point. I think we saw a little bit of it, right after the first Trump inauguration.
There's no way to measure just how many people are buying guns because the political environment scares them. But the phrase, "how do I buy a gun?" spiked a number of times in the last year, according to Google Trends. The spikes came around the time of Trump's election, his inauguration, the first immigration enforcement blitz in January, and the day when Trump held a military parade in Washington, D.C. David Yamani is a professor of sociology at Wake Forest University. He says the nation's volatile politics have been driving more liberals and minorities to buy guns for some time.
We definitely saw something similar happening in the COVID year of 2020, where we rolled straight from the pandemic into the summer of the George Floyd murder protests, and then rolling straight from there into a contested presidential election. And there we do have some data. We do know that in that year that new gun owners were disproportionately African American, they were disproportionately female.
Gun ownership among liberals has been on the rise long before Trump's reelection. In 2022, a University of Chicago study found that 29% of Democrats or Democrat-leaning people nationwide had a gun at home. That's 7 percentage points higher than a dozen years earlier. Like the vast majority of gun owners, those who spoke to NPR said they would only use the weapons for self-protection and would not engage with law enforcement. MJ is a member of a liberal self-defense group in the Midwest.
All the language that we use is absolutely not about rallying together to arm and go assault anyone at all. Absolutely not. If anyone even talks like that, I or someone else would probably boot them out of the group.
Bill Sack is with the Second Amendment Foundation, which challenges gun control legislation. He says he's glad to see more liberals exercising their rights to self-defense. But he has a caveat.
Is it a good thing that people are scared? No, of course not.
Every new gun owner NPR interviewed for this story said they thought it was highly unlikely they would have to defend themselves because of civil unrest. But they also said if they ever had to, they'd regret not having a gun. Frank Langfitt, NPR News.
We go to war tomorrow with Antifa because we know they're the enemy. Yeah. We know they're coming for our children. They're coming for our freedom. They're coming for our Constitution. They're coming for our country. They're coming for our culture. But we are the counterculture. Yeah. And God will watch over us as we rise. And God will watch over us as we become loud. God will watch over us as we become proud.
Last month, President Trump issued an executive order labeling the left-wing movement Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. It's unclear what that means in the real world. There's no statute for domestic terrorism. But now the president is talking about designating Antifa a foreign terrorist organization. That would have legal teeth and likely enormous repercussions. NPR Justice correspondent Ryan Lucas reports.
Earlier this month, President Trump welcomed right-wing influencers to the White House for a roundtable about Antifa, the far-left movement or ideology opposed to fascism. Some of the influencers gathered around the table urged the president to designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization.
Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
Do you think it would help?
They have foreign links
I'd be glad
all
to
across
do it.
Western
I think it's
Europe.
the kind of thing I'd like to do. If you'd like, does
Middle
everybody
East.
agree? If you agree, I agree. Let's get it done. Okay? Let's get it done. Marco, we'll take care of it.
The Marco Trump mentions there is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, because it's the State Department that has the legal authority to designate foreign terrorist groups. Jason Blazakis led the office at State that is responsible for those decisions during the Obama and first Trump administrations.
I do think it would be a highly dangerous step for the administration to pursue.
Blazakis says there are certain legal criteria to designate a group a foreign terrorist organization, including that it is indeed a cohesive organization. In the case of Antifa, Blazakis says it is not a functioning group like ISIS or Al-Qaeda, which had clear leadership and a hierarchy. Instead, he and other experts say Antifa isn't an organization at all. It's more of a movement of disparately linked people who share an ideology, which is that fascism is bad.
I would really call on the State Department or the U.S. government to tell us who the leader of Antifa is and where they are based.
The State Department also would have to demonstrate that Antifa is engaged in terrorism and that it is a foreign group, not inherently domestic.
If there is a domestic nexus that represents a significant domestic presence of that group, you wouldn't be able to proceed with a designation.
Still, Blazakis says the Trump administration could make a creative argument, or as he puts it, stretch the truth, in order to designate Antifa as a foreign terrorist organization. If it succeeds, the reverberations would be massive, says Thomas Brzezowski, the former counsel for domestic terrorism at the Justice Department.
It would have immediate legal impact, and it would have a cascading effect across civil society, including social media organizations, civic organizations, and everything in between.
The most immediate impact would be the ability for federal prosecutors to bring the criminal charge of material support to a designated terrorist organization. Material support is broadly defined and can mean something as small as a $10 gift card or a bottle of water. That charge, which carries a penalty of up to 20 years in prison, could be brought against anyone associated with what the administration deems to be Antifa. Again, Brzezowski.
When that foreign terrorist organization is so ill-defined and nobody even knows what it is, and it potentially includes all activity that can be painted as left-wing or whatever term you'd like to hang on it, that becomes potentially catastrophically dangerous for anybody, for everybody.
That's just the criminal liability. Then there are what Brzezowski sees as the potential cascading effects. Social media companies, he says, could take steps to restrict any communication that could be seen as related to Antifa if it were to be designated a foreign terrorist group. The companies also could build mechanisms to report such activities on their platforms to the government.
That really, in today's environment, obviously is going to dictate in many respects what the broader public sees and what they don't see.
Universities, meanwhile, could cancel conferences that touch any topic that might conceivably relate to anti-fascism, he says, and faculty research could be curtailed. Then there are the insurance firms that insure universities, nonprofits, progressive think tanks, and foundations.
They're not going to insure these institutions if they touch anything that remotely concerns anti-fascism. And think about how broad that is. What does it even mean? It sounds crazy, Kafkaesque, but that's what this designation would bring into play.
All of these ripple effects, of course, depend on the Trump administration following through and designating Antifa a foreign terrorist organization. And in Brzezowski's view, there's good reason to believe they will.
The president himself, during a roundtable at the White House, turned to his senior advisors, whose job it is to designate these entities, and instructed them to do it on TV. So yeah, I think they might do it. People aren't ready for it. People are not ready for it. If that goes through, I'm telling you, unbelievable.
Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
A recent Pew Research Center study found that 54% of women say they turn to a friend for emotional support, but only 38% of men say they do. Men's lack of deep, close friendships has been in the spotlight lately. To try to understand more about it, we asked men across the country to tell us what friendship means to them and why some of them struggle to maintain social connections with one another.
It's about feeling comfortable with somebody enough to be your authentic self. It's somebody that is there for you and you are there for them.
I define friendship as being a mutual connection between two people. It's very much a two-way street.
I think friendship is definitely harder for men. I don't think men open up as much as they should.
From my experience, I think that men are sort of more the type to isolate themselves.
There were a lot of times where I was closer friends with women than I was with men. Sometimes women, you can connect with them better on an emotional level, as opposed to men.
I think a lot of my male friends mirror my personality. They're softer. They don't feel the need to be headstrong or to compete innately with each other.
My best friend, his name is Mateo. I really trust him. It's the type of relationship where there's a mutual vulnerability.
I know it's cliche, but my wife actually is my best friend. With her, there was this natural genuineness. And so it actually helped me open up more with her and to be my genuine self with her. And she was very accepting of everything. Personally, I'm still in the spot where it is hard to make new friends. I guess I'd like to see more events going on, more things, more places that people could go just to hang out, whether you know somebody or not. I would definitely welcome more male friendships. I gotta admit, I get jealous when people hang out with the guys, and I don't really have that sort of dynamic.
So why do some men seem to struggle with friendship? Novelist and essayist Sam Graham-Felsen recently wrote an essay in the New York Times Magazine entitled, "Where Have All My Deep Male Friendships Gone?" And Richard Reeves is the CEO of the American Institute for Boys and Men, which focuses on research and policy. Sam, I want to start with you. In your essay, you had a line that struck me. You said that when you were younger, you had friends that I loved and needed and who loved and needed me, and whom now I almost never talk to. What did you learn about how men interact with each other? And also, what did you learn about yourself in doing this?
Well, I was aware of the fact that there was a loneliness crisis in this country and that men were hit particularly hard. But I never really accepted that I was one of these data points. I always thought of myself as an exception, somebody who had lots of friends. And then I had kids, I got married, I got busy with work, and days, weeks, sometimes months would go by without seeing a friend. And I finally started to admit to myself that I actually was lonely. And that's kind of the impetus for wanting to write this article, was exploring how did someone like me, who I had always seen myself as a hypersocial person, somebody with tons of friends when I was a younger man, how did I get to the point where in my 30s and 40s, I was spending, most weekend nights in my house, not going out, not seeing friends.
Richard, do men and women socialize differently?
Yeah, that's one of the differences, is that men tend to socialize through an activity of one kind or another, right? Men tend to socialize somewhat more shoulder to shoulder, is how the social scientists put it, as opposed to face to face. So whether that's fishing or hiking or watching sport, they need those spaces where men can kind of hang out. Women seem to be a little bit better at just doing face to face, meeting up just to talk to each other. Men tend to need some sort of structure. And so what that means is that if those structures fall away, then that makes it just a little bit harder for men.
Sam, having acknowledged that you were lonely and written this piece, have you done anything differently in your life since then?
So I really did the most basic possible thing you could do. I got over my fear and I just started picking up the phone and calling friends, and not only calling friends, but just saying yes to when friends asked me to do something. I mean, it sounds so strange. I love hanging out with my friends, but I can't tell you the number of times in the past when I would come up with some reason, any excuse to not go out, usually something related to work. But I've just committed to, if a friend asks me to hang out, I'm going to say yes, because basically what I've come to realize is that relationships are the most important factor in terms of feeling better and happier. You know, I tried all kinds of things. I tried meditation. I tried, getting in really, really good shape. And all of those things helped a little bit, but they didn't cure the fundamental problem, which was loneliness. And the only thing that cured that was actually starting to hang out more. And it turned out that, my friends were totally eager to get back in touch and start hanging out again. And, might have been awkward for a few minutes, but pretty quickly we found a groove and ended up, enjoying hanging out again.
Sam, I know you've written another essay since then about a road trip you took with your son. You said you talked about masculinity. Did you also talk about friendship?
Part of why I wanted to take him on this road trip is because he's now 9, but we were watching a movie together, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And it's a movie about male friendship, but there's a point in the movie where Bill and Ted embrace each other, and then they quickly pull away. And I watched my son react to that. And I've heard him say things like, I used to say to my friends, I love you, but I don't say that anymore because I don't want them to think I'm weird or something. And that just struck me as a kind of sad thing, because I have a daughter who's a couple of years younger, and she has no problem at all saying I love you to her friends. So part of my goal was to teach him resilience and toughness and some of these quote unquote traditional masculine values. But I also wanted to leave room for him to challenge some of the conventions of what we think of as masculine, to be the kind of person who can express his feelings openly and tell his friends he loves them.
Richard, on your website, your group's website, you write that broad measures such as overall loneliness, satisfaction with emotional support, and the number of close friends, men and women, look pretty similar. Take away the gender differences. Is this a societal problem?
There are some differences. Men are more likely to be socially isolated than women, and some studies find this friendship gap. But there's really a huge class gap as well. I think it's worth mentioning that it is really men and women from lower income backgrounds that are kind of struggling the most, actually, with these social connections. But I think there's just a broader question of isolation, disconnection. It's easier to stay at home now. And so whilst I really applaud this move in my own life to try and definitely be more open about expressing love and physical affection for male friends, we should also be very careful not to end up treating men as if actually we can't have some differences in the way that male friendships work. There are differences in the dynamics of male and female friendships, and that's okay. One of the things that really seems to bring men together is when they're doing things for other people, and voluntary organizations all over the US are desperately short of male volunteers. So maybe one of the ways we can connect with each other is by doing things for others.
After I wrote this article, I heard from hundreds of men all across the country who said that they were struggling with this issue. One of the people that I heard from is part of an organization where it starts out being about fitness, but it's morphed into a nationwide movement of men working out together and then doing community service work together.
I think, Sam, this is in a way the win-win, which is to connect through providing service through purpose. And so there's a hunger for connection, but this isn't a selfish desire necessarily. We're also, I think, looking for connection so that we can have a kind of positive impact on the world.
Richard Reeves, Sam Graham-Felsen, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Friends indeed. Quality relationships. Neely Fuller Jr. talked about that regularly. The system of white supremacy racism disrupts our ability to have quality relationships. They said that class thing all throughout. Class, working class, lower class, the lowest class in the world. Got to be back of the bus, bottom of the boat. Black, get back. Don't want to be friends with no privileged Negro males. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, November 1, 2025. So I have been told. I'm so thankful to have survived October 31. Oh man. I thought maybe, it was going to be an easy day, get through, because it's Friday. Generally, if Halloween falls on Friday, like, oh man, you better pray, get a rabbit's foot, get 15 of them, 4-leaf clover, garlic, anything you can think of. Pray to the ancestors, pour out some holy water. Oh man, that means it's going to be a whole weekend of debauchery. That means Halloween is just going to probably start like Thursday night and just extend all the way to Monday. Ooh. Danger. I thought maybe Gus T might get a slight reprieve because, hey, Seattle 206, my beloved, we do what 206 do. It rained all day long. My thinking, who wants to be outside in a costume or no? It's rainy. It's not summertime anymore. So it was rainy, like 54 degrees, I think was the high. Who wants to be out trudging up and down puddles and mud, splashing folks, getting wet? Even if I got a costume on, I'm soaked. It's not even going to look cute anymore. It was about 11. So it's late, dark, cold, and rainy. I'm leaving University of Washington doing constructive things, I thought, counter-racist at least. I'm leaving. It's quiet. All of a sudden, I can just hear like, and it was just getting louder and louder. I looked. I swear for the Lord, I thought I was in Cranberry. I'm still on the University of Washington campus. I'm not even out in Seattle proper. Still on campus. After 11 p.m. It looked like we were in Cranberry, New Jersey. White mob come in with their bucket of paint to castrate and sodomize. I kid thee not. It was an army. All of the, they had got the costumes looking like Harry Potter. White killers and bumblebees and all the Mario brothers. Man, trudging along in the rain. I got my little privileged Negro male hooves rolling like, oh my Lord, they are not going to kill me out here for no Halloween fun. I thought, oh man, I would be safe. Wrong. Horror Day, one of the most important in white supremacy culture, and really a lot of it is, you got the killing, the debauchery, drinking, lots of it, scaring people, tricking people, all of that, that's white culture. Talk about that all the time, that worship of death, killing, see, all the time. Anyway, but I am thankful to have survived the day. Hopefully it will not be too bad as now we can just encroach on the Christmas madness and all of that, focus forward. Man, Dr. Kambani said Horror Day season. This is the kickoff. We just got started. Boatloads of these rolling all the way to, I don't even know, New Year's Day, kind of. I think the Super Bowl is kind of the end of the Horror Day season, at least that's the way I see it. Super Bowl is a holiday, Negro History Month, kind of all wrapped into one. That's the end of the season, basically. Anyway, today's date, Saturday, November 1, 2025, so I have been told. Our weekly compensatory call-in. They will set the clocks back 1 hour shortly in this part of the world, fall back into counter-racist logic. I guess maybe you get an extra hour of snooze, or I don't know, doing counter-racist activities or what have you, but extra 60 minutes this evening. Our weekly compensatory call-in, not for spectators. Dial in if you have observations, thoughts, counter-racist suggestions. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564 64943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Quickly, last week Lauren told us on the compensatory call-in that she had kept up, because I didn't play a segment about this, but she had just been keeping up with the news. Bravo for her. Other folks doing the same, following the tradition of Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. But she said there was a hanging and burning in the Houston, Texas area last week of a male, and she said black male, but she self-corrected. She said, I don't know that. Just the hanging, burning. They released that it was a male, but no other identifying information. In the time subsequent to last Saturday, name of this victim has been released: Jeremy Glenn Carnes, Carnes, 46-year-old white male, and they say even Mr. Carnes' dog is missing. So you know white people are going to take this very seriously. But this was not a black male or non-white person, period, victim of a well, they did say it was a male. We knew that last week. So yeah, this was not a black male or non-white male who was found hanging and burned in Texas, thankfully. White male, not that anyone should be killed in such a manner, but they do strongly suspect foul play. So yeah, that was update from last week. I was going to include a news report about that segment, but then found out this was not a victim of racism. So that's it. Number 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Again, invest if you think the C.O.W.S is constructive. Hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. You'll also see the links for Cash App, Venmo, link for PayPal as well. Enormous gratitude to all of the investors who have kept us rolling. It'll be 17 years if we are here in February. Not a brag, really, more, I think we've said this for the longest. Hey, that just means 17 years we have not succeeded in solving the problem. Anyhoodles, you can also hit the wish list at Amazon.com. It is listed under Gus T. Renegade. Listener couldn't find it this week. Drop them an email immediately and we'll post it on the social media sites post haste to make sure. But much obliged to all the folks who have nabbed an item from the wish list over the years. Hopefully we have been worthy of your time and energy at the Context of White Supremacy. Also, I wanted to say, since we're supposed to be talking about words and being precise with our use of words, we were talking neutralizing workplace racism this week, and non-Clemson grad, he mentioned Dr. Curry and him saying that racism is permanent. Now, my understanding, I am a little familiar with Dr. Curry, just a tad. My understanding, meaning basically the way I say in my definition, precisely the way I say it in my definition, individuals classified as white are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating, practicing racism, white supremacy throughout the known universe. I do think there is a difference, and difference being, if I say racism is permanent, and this isn't a criticism of Dr. Curry, not even of VGQ, really just words are important. If I say racism is permanent, well, then it's not really a reason for the cows to be here for 17 years. It's no reason for Dr. Curry to do all of his brilliant work around black misandry and the man not race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood. I don't think he would be doing all that if he thought that racism is permanent, it's going to be with us forever. Nor would I. I do think it is important to say, hey, this is not white ignorance. This is not that white people are unawares. They got their blinders on. They're unconscious. They're stupid. None of that. I do think it's very important to say, hey, white people are dedicated, committed to white supremacy racism forever. This ain't no, oh man, we can talk them out of this and they'll voluntarily desist. Nah, that ain't it at all. Mr. Fuller, he said, individuals classified as white who practice racism, they have made it their reason for existence. That also is different than saying racism is permanent. To say that racists, they have made the system of white supremacy their reason for being alive. That is very different than saying racism is permanent. Just wording is important. And also, I think it's more important to be precise about what is the nature of this problem. It's not some abstract racism is with it. No. White people are dedicated to practicing racism, white supremacy. They're not ignorant about it. They're dedicated experts about all this. That is a very different way of thinking about this problem. Like I said, I think it's important to not say, because that almost sounds like this problem cannot be solved. Again, if that's the case, there's no reason for this program. Words are important. Dr. Curry, lots more education than I. So again, not a critique, just a, getting to the same idea, but how it's stated is important. From the Worthless Negro in Virginia. From Virginia, thank God, 206. Not in Virginia, thank God. Now, the police raid in Brazil, I thought that was so important because they said dozens of people, and that was when they said working class people in the favelas. Man, we read Black Man in Brazilian Soccer, Catherine Massey Book Club, and we read it right after the January 8, 2023 riots. President Bolsonaro just got sentenced to almost 30 years and such. And I kept saying the whole time that we were reading that book, and they were talking about no count dark males and all that homoeroticism. I kept saying the whole time, I ain't seen no dark people that look like Pele's cousins, nephews, nieces. I ain't seen nobody like that running around talking about, man, forget Lula and we with Bolsonaro and this ain't right and you cheated and stole the other and we're not going to take. However you say that in Portuguese, I ain't seen that, and I still haven't. It's been almost 3 years now, and I still ain't seen no photos with no dark people like that, rather people that look like they ran out of the favelas. And I don't remember them having no police attacks. Hey, because they were destroying government property. They were acting a fool down there. I don't remember no heavy-handed police tactics and people out weeping in the streets and, oh my goodness, I can't believe that they did this and what a violent result. It was none of that. I know these folks probably look like Pele's cousins and nieces and nephews, all of that, great-grandchildren. I know they look like they could have just favelas. Oh, that's where you keep the niggers. Then it's more black people in Brazil than any place else in this hemisphere. Not even close. Not even close. And they do the same thing they do here. We just won't call it racism. It's class. Yeah, these poor people that, And in fact, I know this was black people because they said they just dumped all these bodies in the ravine. That is the most niggardly thing in the world. When they Mike Brown Jr. you, put your body in the street or the river or the creek or wherever, And hey, get away, don't touch that, and just leave you out there in the sun, let the buzzards pick over you for 5, 8, 12 hours. They don't do that to white people. That's what you reserve for the niggers. I know who these people, and they said they said there ain't no victims here but the police. Wow. These are just thugs. I know exactly what these people look like. Wow. And they talked about that raid. They don't even, do they raid white people like that anywhere in the world? Are you all familiar with any raid? When these old narco-terrorist raids that they're doing in the Caribbean, that's a little bit further north from Brazil, are they bombing any people who, look like they could be white? What do these people, has anybody seen any images? Who are these people that they're saying, hey man, we got to go and get these old narco-terrorists, man. We are not going to take it, and we're stopping all this drug traffic. Have people seen? Who are they talking about? That's another one. I don't think they do that sort of thing that people classified as white. I think these are dark people, but on both accounts, the narco-terrorists and in Brazil on the raid. But they said the people in Brazil had drones with bombs. Not the police. They said the old thugs that they piled up in the ravines, they said they had drones with bombs. What? What? And importantly, that's important for a lot of reasons. And some of the folks that they talked to in the favelas, they said the boys. Now, I don't know if that was just casual talk. I don't know if these were 17-year-olds, the black men in Brazilian soccer. I don't know. Black men in Brazilian soccer. I don't know if these were 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds who had drones with bombs. They could have been very young. But I thought that was important too. Boys, or that could have been something lost in translation. Don't know. But man, said that for years. That should be one. We're serious scholars, counter racism. We should keep a casual eye on things happening in Brazil. Keep up with the news, book from time to time, lecture. If you get an opportunity to go there, take it. Keep an eye on what happens in Brazil, and even the relationship, President Trump and Bolsonaro and all that. Keep an eye on things that happen in Brazil. Even some of this narco-terrorism is kind of pointed in that direction. Venezuela, right? South America, that's kind of pointed same direction. Argentina, they've been talking about quite a bit too. Bailing them out, right? Yes. But Brazil specifically, keep an eye on things happening in Brazil, and then that'll kind of focus your attention on South America in general. Let's see. Jim Jones. Let's see. The segment on Head Start shutting down potentially in some regions, although some regions I have started to see, I think in Wisconsin they had 2 separate Head Start programs that they say were closing down until all this is done. Most of the children in the Head Start program are not white, which should not be surprising at all, because white people have been complaining about the so-called browning of America for some time, and then all the reports about white people having fertility issues and not having children, it's too expensive to have children, and blah, 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 all the rest of it. Either way, most of the children in the Head Start program are not white. Direct impact. I mean, that's like generational impact, because some of the research is in the book, You Are What Your Grandparents Ate. And the author Judith Finlayson, she was a guest on the program, she talks about if you suffer through some sort of famine, you don't get to eat well as a child, as your like early developmental stages, birth through like 6, 10, oh man, that can have an enormous impact on your life, because your whole body and brain is developing then. So if you are not adequately nourished at that time frame, it can have a huge detrimental impact on your health in life moving forward, even your eating habits and such, on it for the duration of your life, if your nutritional needs if there's a deficit during this period. Head Start, mostly non-white children. Let's see. The segment when they talked about sticking with the schools, the Columbine drills that they got to have because white children are going to come and shoot up the school. I thought the most important line in that specific report, and they said, and they're talking about, is it worth it? Does this traumatize children? We talked about some of this, the cost-benefit analysis with Dr. Angeline Spalding Flowers. The first time, she's been a guest on the program 3 times now. I think the first time around we talked about this. She has children and grandchildren, and she talked about, because her grandchildren has these lockdown drills. You better hope she does. But the most important line in that segment, when the guest said, the perpetrator is likely already in the building and white. But that's what Dr. Angeline Spalding said, and much of the evidence and literature has shown for a long time. Columbine, man. The enemy is already in the building. And he, she, they are white. I don't know how do you prepare for that one. And that's even what some of the reports have said for a long time, that, man, it's kind of difficult because you can't really restrict access to people that are supposed to be here. What do you do then? Let's see. The CPR, I just appreciate the reminders because they talked about the importance of CPR classes and such. If that's not impacted by the shutdown, the literature, and we had one of the co-authors as a guest on our program a couple years back, but the literature showing that black people are less likely to receive CPR, and they didn't say BIPOC, they didn't see people of color, they didn't say LGBTQ individuals, they said black people are less likely to get CPR in public than white people. And I believe, my memory is just a little niggerish today, but I believe that was regardless if it was a black person and they keeled over in public, if it was black spectators, white spectators, whatever, black people are less likely to receive CPR in public than white people. And black people are less likely to get access to CPR training than non-white people. We talked about all that, encouraged some of our non-white listeners to actually get CPR, teach CPR to their classes and children. I was so stunned about that because just sharing constructive information, but lots of non-white people, listeners, COWS listeners, called back in or wrote back in to talk about they went and got CPR certified because of that. So always good to get a reminder. And even with the old brain damage football, lots more black children play in those dangerous brain damage contact sports where people are not adequately trained with CPR, so that when something serious, an injury does happen, you don't have the quality certified trained people to come in and get things taken care of in the best way possible to minimize damage. Get that CPR class pronto. Let's see. The segment on the lead paint in the California houses. Man, what is it to love about Los Angeles? Oh, maybe the Dodgers win the World Series today. I didn't see the score of the game. Maybe there you go. My man Shohei Ohtani and them, they done it. They done won back-to-back. Maybe that's what to love about L.A. I don't know, man. They mess around and lose that game, then I'll stick my chest out real again. What is it to love about Los Angeles? I know they won it last year still, but I'm just saying, like, really? I don't think I love basketball. I said that when I was down there last year. I was in L.A. this time last year, and I said that. I don't love no Bron James. I was there for Bronny James' debut. I said, I don't love no Bronny James that much. I was there for the Dodgers when they won. I don't love no baseball. I don't even know anybody on the Mariners baseball team still. We were almost in the World Series. I still couldn't name nobody. What's to love about LA? In fact, what I groused about while I was there, in addition to the traffic, racism, LAPD, Rodney King, what I groused about was can't breathe. I kept quoting Neely Fuller Jr. I said, what's more important than breathing? Not having lead in your system? That'd be pretty high up there too. Lots of things to attack your brain computer. But man, when they had that old wildfire at the beginning of the year that was kind of days after I got back from LA, and I was kind of wigging out back here in Seattle like, oh my God, what if that happened while I was there? And the health ramifications that you thought you couldn't breathe then. Whew. They got lots of news reports from January of this year. They said, do you know what made this wildfire so bad? Lots of reasons, but one component was, the air quality is atrocious. Why? Exactly what they said in that report. We got so many houses in LA with lead in it. This isn't just like trees burned up. This is all that lead paint and asbestos. Whew. Now that's what you can breathe. What's the love about LA? Now I gotta breathe in incinerated lead paint, asbestos. Black people that mocked me via email tell me, Gusty up here worrying about health concerns, what you breathing and all this. What a coon and a moron. While they saying, we got all this debris in our house. What's in the debris in your house? Oh, the lead paint. The lead paint from the houses that burned down around you. What's the love about LA? I love California. I say the non-LA parts. The non-LA part. They said they just drive around the city like, oh my God, that's got lead paint, that's got lead paint, that's got lead paint. If it's that much lead paint in the environment, man, it almost seems like it doesn't matter if your house has lead paint or not. If they're going to have wildfires every other day, it definitely will not matter if your house specifically has lead paint or not. What's the love about LA? What's more important than breathing? And your brain computer not being poisoned. I'm away. That World Series might be nice if they win it, but I mean, good God. Good God. Good God. I told you, my brother Magic Johnson, I seen him at the World Series. What kind of air filter do you have at your properties in LA? Brother Bron James, the people that's been there, Kendrick, what type of air filters do you all have? Let me know in case I have to visit LA. Let me stay with one of y'all if I have to come back again. That way I won't even have to worry about it. I can write it down exactly like these are the air filters, and they got 15 of them in the house. I got it. Let's see. They talked about that segment in, oh, wait a minute, before I get past the list. They said in April of this year on Freddie Gray, President Trump fired the entire CDC staff, Centers for Disease Control, for childhood lead poisoning prevention. All of them. Get on up out of here. Whew. I am so sad that I missed that on Freddie Gray. I know that is a program, and especially if he just, all of y'all, get the stepping. You've been stealing cardboard boxes. Get out of here. I know that program was about a lot of, on Freddie Gray, I know that was a whole lot of non-white people poison brain computer. Not medical apartheid, which is great too, but a terrible thing to waste. Harriet A. Washington, she talked about all this exactly. That's another one. All of this by design. Harm, it's like going, and specifically I'm going to pinpoint as many things as I can. Anything that looks like it might help non-white people, or even gather information about how non-white people are being impacted and terrorized by racism. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Head Start, get rid of it, get rid of it. Department of Education, get rid of it, get rid of it. the CDC's childhood-led poisoning prevention program fire them all? On Freddie Gray. They won't even remember his name. Won't even remember his name. Let's see. When they talked about the so-called gentrification in New York, they call Mamdani the gentrification king. Is that name calling? I'm just asking. Me personally, VGQ, Mayor Eric Adams as well, VGQ, but racist suspect would be way better than gentrification king. Racist suspect trying to get black property owners out of their houses. You're a racist suspect. Racial dislocation. You can add in the gentrification if you need to, but ain't nothing better than a racist suspect. You don't have to call him a racist. I suspect might be a racist. This is what I would expect a racist to do. Come in and support initiatives so that black people lose property again. I think that's more accurate than gentrification king, but victims guaranteed qualified. That's just my view. That they spoke with Kala Moore, victim of white supremacy. They described her as a black moderate Democrat. What does that mean? That's another one. Victim of racism. That would be my suggestion. Anytime someone sticks a microphone in your face and they say, how do you classify? I submit, do not say I'm a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Marcus Garvey, Freedom Party, ADOS. Tell them the truth. The most accurate descriptor. I am a victim of white supremacy. Even if they say, are you proud and black? You proud and African American? I am a victim of white supremacy. That would be most accurate. Now I don't know what moderate black Democrat. No idea. Anyway, but she said, if there's a black community and these white people move in, we already know the rent goes up. Part of the racist code for sure, and they have lots of ways of doing it. Even if the rent doesn't go up, property taxes go up, lots of ways. Very refined at taking black property away. We talked about some of this in the Catherine Massey Book Club. We did talk about this, Catherine Massey Book Club, Wilmington, North Carolina. Lots of ways of getting these Negras up off this property. But I thought Miss Moore, she could have stopped. If there's a black community, we wouldn't be having these problems for centuries where we can't even keep a house. That right there would be evidence. No, there is no black community in a system of white supremacy. Some of this is we really poor job at articulating the system of white supremacy racism. And I think a lot of time that's kind of the chicken egg thing, what I mean in terms of we are confused, we don't accurately understand, and so our verbalization is very illogical, inaccurate, just doesn't make sense, particularly doesn't make sense in terms of what is happening. Community is one of those big ones. I guess that's something we would like to have, and even that, if we replace white supremacy with justice, there would be no need for a black community. You could probably drop all of that, black and community, because we would just have justice in the universe. Proceed. Let's see. They said they fear because Mamdani, he won in the primary without Negro support, and they say they fear that the black influence is waning in the New York City area. What Negro influence did black people, moderates or otherwise, have in the New York City area anyway? We have callers in New York. What influence do you all have to do anything? Please tell. I thought they just reported that privileged black males in the New York City area, their employment levels had not recovered from COVID-19. So I don't know how much influence you have out on a cardboard box or in a homeless shelter or in a Carmelo Anthony jersey in New York City. especially in the wintertime. It's cold. You'd have to break that down for me. But what? And how is it manifested? Like, you got Mayor Eric Adams in office? I don't live in New York City. I'm on the opposite side of the continent. I do not recall Eric Adams talking about how he was going to hook up black people when he became mayor or becomes mayor during his campaign. I don't remember that at all. I remember specifically him saying he was going to bring swag back to the mayor's office in New York. I remember him saying that. I do not remember him saying nothing about counter racism, produce justice, my black brothers and sisters. I don't remember nothing about that. He was a former police officer. That's what I remember. The police union supporting him, and people talking like, I don't know, he's still a former police officer. You remember Thomas in New York said, hey, if you are classified as black and you get that badge, you are now white. That's the type of thing that I remember people talking about, not our black brother, Mr. Adams. He is going to do right by us. We got to. I'm not saying black people did or didn't vote for him. I'm just saying I don't remember him making no explicit stance that would make me think, yeah, Mayor Eric Adams is a manifestation of Negro influence in New York. What? What happened to all the other mayors? Was Mayor de Blasio? Was that the Negro influence in New York? I could vomit. Like, Jesus Christ. For those who do not recall, the two-term mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, was a white man, was married to a black female. They had two quote-unquote biracial offspring that they prominently showcased, really the whole family. And I remember Bill de Blasio talking about how we're going to do something about racism and stop and frisk and all that with the NYPD. This is ridiculous. I remember that explicitly. And him put, like I said, getting his child, this big afro, to come stand out front. And yes, you see, I know racism. See, look at my children. Look at it. Look at my wife. She's highly melanated. Look at it. I don't remember Eric Adams doing that. But was that Bill de Blasio? That was Negro influence in New York? I am confused. I have no idea. They would have to give me, I was in Buffalo. I guess that's not close enough to New York City to really gauge, but anyway, he used the term exotic to describe Mamdani. Is this fellow Mamdani, is he white or not white? I'm not sure. I don't even have a guess, really, at this juncture, but that would be something to know, especially if they're saying real New Yorkers and language like, is this a white fella or no? Let's see. When they talked about the not having children, Wyoming's fertility rate, or people moving to Wyoming to get away from all the expenses and such, and white people saying that they don't want to have children. Lots of reasons that I could see. Yes, let's close the Department of Education and all the rest of it. Either white people don't want to have children, it's too expensive to have children, we don't have hospitals anyway for you to have children, we got the government shutdown, so you lost your benefits, all the rest of it got, I mean, it's a long, and fertility issues, it's a long list of reasons, especially if you had a government job and you had IVF benefits and then you lost that, now you don't have that. It's a long list of reasons why fewer white people are producing white offspring. Interestingly, they mentioned Wyoming. That is like a whole racially restricted region. Now, Wyoming is not densely populated, but woo-wee, ain't no Negras in Laramie or any other part of Wyoming. Why would we want to go to Wyoming? Just because the rent is it? That's like that ethno-state type of a thing. Why do we want to go to Wyoming? The rent is cheap and ain't no Leroy's. I love it already. Let's see. The whole segment on guns, I will just say quickly. One, I will remind now, we heard that what I submit, Portuguese-speaking Negras in Brazil got murdered and tossed in a ravine. They didn't even properly take out the bodies. That's normally what you do even under conditions of war. Man, we'll leave them in the ravine. Now, they had drones with bombs, and they got dumped in the ravine. You have black people in 2025, nearly 75 years removed from Robert F. Williams, North Carolina, Negroes with guns, where he had to go to Cuba like Assata Shakur. You have black people in 2025 who are really like days removed. What's that group? Not effing around. They were out marching and had their pistols and firearms and all that, and then the main person in charge got all these federal indictments, court case pending. We have black people in 2025, not even a decade removed from Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Mendoza, Philando Castile with his care mate in the car, live stream, gun owning. I'm not saying to not go to the gun range. I'm not saying don't get your firearm. I am saying the masters of firearms on this here planet, and it is not close, they are classified as white. Now, they said Charlie, he was at the gun range and he had his pistol and he's shooting, trying to, be proficient. And he said, I'm concerned it's going to be some sort of civil unrest. Oh, man. Victims guaranteed qualified. My thought to Charlie and lots of, because this is so popular, that's another one. I can only take it as embarrassing in terms of our confusion about white supremacy, racism, and really what it means to be classified as white. Now, he said civil unrest and running out in the streets and all of that. If it gets to that point, we already lost. Take a good look. Matter, you can pick either January date, January 6th here or January 8th in South America. Take a good look. And that's kind of a sanitized version. That's just like the zip ties and pepper spray and what have you, the ice axe. That's kind of the sanitized version. You're not really getting to see all the white people stand up with your AR-15s. Come on. Like, you're not even seeing all the white people stand up with your drones that are armed and see a whole room of 15-year-olds stand up, ready to roll. And they got nigger jokes. Wow, they got their armed drones. I'm not saying not go to the gun range. I'm not saying not to have your pistol. I am saying we do not really grasp. White people have no problem with niggers with guns, and especially now, no problem with niggers and guns. Matter of fact, I'm tripping. I'm sorry, you all. Forget everything I just said. We just heard that report last week in Illinois. It was not one, it was not two, it was racks of niggers. Racks of niggers. These were legal gun owners. Bragged about the Second Amendment, and white people were smacking them around and putting them in jail left and right. Shut up, nigger. Shut up, nigger. And it was black females, black male. Shut up, nigger woman. Shut up, nigger man. I don't care about Second Amendment. Yeah, NRA. Get in that jail cell. And they got to go through all this. We heard the young lady, she said, I'm a realtor. You go on my website to buy a house, and they got a picture of my mugshot up there. Arrest me like I'm some sort of criminal and a thug, like the folks in Brazil. Yep. I'm not saying don't get the firearm. I'm not saying not to go to the gun range. But I am saying if you think you being classified as black and being gun proficient and having a firearm, oh my Lord, that's going to do something to make things better. Civil arrest, anything of the nature, you is out of your mind and you do not understand what it means to be. I should have played the segment. That's two my bads. I should have got Illinois first because that's last week. We just heard that last week. That's super current. And what we've been saying we've been here for 17 years. We've been saying this for 17 years. White people kill for fun. I've been saying for a minute, You get that firearm and train and do whatever you got to do. Ooh-wee. If you have to pull that firearm to fire at a white person, that is going to be one of the worst, if not the worst day on the plantation for you. You might learn quickly. How many AR-15s do these white people have? Who knows? Who knows? They got more than you do. I know that. Way more than we do. Like, way more than we do. More bullets, too. So, yeah. Anyway, I've been criticized for cooning, so, use your brain computer. That's why you don't want to get that lead paint, because we got to do lots of thinking. Lots of thinking. The number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, if you have commentary to share, line should be open. Proceed. Let's see.
Greetings, everyone.
Retired firefighter in Florida. Yes, sir.
I'm going to join the Uncle Tom club. I've mentioned on this program time and time again, you can teach a child on CPR. A child can be taught on how to perform CPR. You can also teach a child on how to use the AED machine, the ones that are put up in schools and parks, that sort of thing, if needed. The fire department would ready come and teach groups of people on how to do both. Guns. I've studied, but I don't know of any black person in the world that owns a outdoor gun facility. Probably don't own an indoor gun facility, or use their property as a gun range. Because I do know there are some non-white black people who have acreage, but I've never seen that acreage being used as a gun range. That's the practice part. A gun has no use unless it has bullets. I imagine that they may be a few non-white people who are registered classified as black who are gunsmiths, but I don't know any at all that are gunsmiths. Make bullets, repair firearms, that sort of thing. So I would say from my life experiences and being around firearms, I have registered that the logical use for it is to protect yourself as best you can in the facility where you sleep at, quote unquote, your home. That's the most logical place, because, by logic and by law, you don't have to retreat from that facility. And it is more danger on the aggressor in a lot of cases, to come while you are, let's say you are prepared, and someone is coming to your house. It makes it much more complicated, unless that person is a studied professional, like a law enforcement, that sort of thing. And they really are very cautious in those type of situations themselves. But nevertheless, the only place that I think would be reasonable for using firearm protection is from the place where you reside at. And that's my report for today. Thanks for listening.
Retired firefighter was with us in Florida at the gun range 2 times, quite proficient, even helped some of us novices, myself, ignorant about everything, firearms included, but was right there, easily the most proficient of the group, for sure. Even I think a number of us say, man, he should be a gun instructor and all that. Maybe he could be the first, get that gun range on the property and all that. But yes, very proficient, but still, logic is logic. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir. Octavius in New York.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings, calls and listeners.
Hey, well, you got influence. My bad. I'm sorry for interrupting. You got influence in New York City politics. You get a say in what's going on. You tell them to get things right and help out black people.
I'm just as I'm just as underprivileged as everybody else in New York. Well, specifically black men, to be very candid. The area I live in, and Bed-Stuy, it has the black people and that it's literally considered the most violent, homeless shelter in New York City. It's a little tough. But there's a lot going on. And I'll speak to Mondani. I think it's really tricky because hearing the person from Clinton Hill speak about Mondani and how he's problematic, it's not like Mondani's been in office. It's been literally Cuomo's that have been running the governor position in New York State for quite some time. Even to the point they stopped Bill de Blasio from doing things. And the only reason why I know this is because I spoke to a professor that was in CUNY that spoke about the ills that Cuomo was doing to stop even Bill de Blasio, who isn't really that much of a progressive or whatever you may want to call it to begin with. But he was even stopping him from doing things like, cutting away from the Department of Education and other aspects that Cuomo is doing. So it's weird hearing her talk about Cuomo, but he's partially the person that was responsible for the gentrification that's going on in New York City, as well as Bloomberg and others. But that was a little strange to even hear that. I think it's a really tough place to be in, because I have spoken to other people that are non-white black men that said they voted for Cuomo, and I simply asked them one question: if this man has been accused from over 13 women for sexual harassment, would you feel comfortable having him in around your niece, female cousins, aunt, or any female in your family? Would you feel comfortable having him around? And knowing that, do you think that plays a role into him actually running the city? I mean, to me, it's just simple and plain and logical, but I've asked that question plenty of time to just spark a little bit of a brain cell in some of my friends to have them think about their decision in voting for even Cuomo. I think the phrase that you brought up earlier as far as exotic or Mondani, wow. And that seemed like it come from a non-white male. That was that was bad. I don't know how else to put it, because I just think the reality of the situation, my perspective on Mondani, is his father is a professor at Columbia University and deals with politics and history. I think, and I'm just assessing from my perspective, he's aware that he can't speak to the black community because if he speaks directly to the black community, that would push him away, or the white
Garages used to be simple spaces,
would be
a place to park the car or
him and would not engage with him at all because they see him as a black candidate or doing something for black people. And as people may think New York is so liberal, some of the worst racists, to me, in the world are white liberals in New York City, just hands down. Moving on, the school shootings, that was something that kind of brought memories back because my son, even in Brooklyn, in his school, had school shooting threats and was told not to come to school, or they left school early in regards to that. And I think the normalization of this is something that I've been reading Neil Postman's The Disappearance of the Childhood, and he speaks so much about this. And one of the things he speaks about, he brings up Margaret Mead, who was a sociologist, and speaking how technology as well has caused a situation where young children have so much access to things that adults normally do that there's no quote-unquote buffer anymore. It's just as soon as they get a phone or a device, they're just immediately, gradually getting into a space that should be reserved for more adult things. And it also, one of the things she also mentioned was, and I'm paraphrasing by the way.
Can I be heard?
Oh, sorry about that. We can't hear you, but we'll get to you once our caller finishes. Sorry about that. Sorry about that, Octavius in New York. I guess she was excited.
All good. I hope I'm not rambling too much for people. But one of the important things she did mention was the aspect of faith that actually becomes, that children become disenchanted with because they already have access to information. So they believe and think they know more than adults. So the lack of quote-unquote faith or a lack of perceived guidance coming from adults due to technology. And I think that's a very important aspect as well. The white couple try to have kids, and at the end of the segment talks about dogs. Typical. I kind of expected that. And I'll end this on a bit of a brighter note. I did go out for a walk today with a group of non-white people, all black, classified, and we went for a 5-mile walk. Just stretched our legs, got some air. I met new people that I hadn't met before. This was just a random thing that a friend mixed together. It was good to talk. We talked politics. We talked about what's things that are going on in the so-called black community. It was very, very helpful, and I do think that that is a space that we need to consistently work in, and especially this time of year. And this time of year, I believe, is the consumption time where we consume as much junk, television, food, and you name it, from here on in to just about, I'd say, February, I'd say, around Valentine's Day. So I think this is a great time to really hunker down and try your best to maintain your health. Get out as much as you can, even if it's cold or warm wherever you are. It's just my public service announcement in regards to that. And the black male section that the men's section that you spoke about friendship, I think is very important. And I think it is the conditioning that has caused us to drift apart. But I did also create a bunch of new people that I met today that are all black males that hopefully we could link up at later times and actually speak and hang out and build on some of the things we can do in order to counter racism, white supremacy. And with that said, I will mute my line. Thank you.
Bravo. Get out, get that exercise, eat well. That is exactly what racists do not want us doing. The Margaret Mead admitted racist. She wrote about this in a book that she authored with James Baldwin, late. It's called Rap on Race. And we read Neil Postman's Stupid Talk, Crazy Talk in the book club. He wrote a number of great books. A lot of folks said that they learned great things from Stupid Talk, Crazy Talk, the disappearance of childhood. White people do not care about children. Lots more technology available to children now than when that Postman book was published. He was no fan of Orenthal James, Neil Postman, suspected racist. Our young lady who was so eager to share, I guess your microphone, we know it is working. You should be with us.
Yes, Gus, I changed my mind. Because I have to make sure I have everything together. Thank you for answering me.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Let's see. Oh, was that it? Did you have anything else? Okay, got it right.
That's it, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, proceed.
Greetings, Mr. Renegade, callers and listeners. This is Fred Douglas.
Yes, sir.
You asked about Mondani's racial classification. I thought he was non-white. And then I was also wondering too, the comment about the real New Yorkers. It kind of reminded me of the Biden's remark about if you don't support him, you're not black. And I'm not from New York. I'm from Maryland, and so I don't know a whole lot about this particular race for mayor. But it did seem there's an attempt to turn non-white people against each other in this race. With portraying Mondani as being opposed to black people's so-called interests. Seems like a divide and conquer technique. And I was thinking too, could a non-white male be able to run for mayor if he was accused of sexually harassing / abusing 19 or 20 women? I thought it was interesting too when they did the segment on the Head Start program. They the program that they went to was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which is a racially restricted region. Particularly interesting since most children served by Head Start are non-white. Earlier this week, I watched that PBS News segment that you shared about men not having friends. And, from what I recall, the majority, if not all of the people they showed on there were white men or non-black men. And, I was thinking, if it's bad for white men, how bad is it for black males? And then also I was thinking, how can one have friends in a system of white supremacy? And so then I was thinking too that, if we're going to have these connections, they're not friends, but they are people we can have constructive interactions with. And I think that is definitely something that needs to occur. And I applaud Octavius in New York for what he was doing this week. This past, I guess a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if people were aware of this. Like I said, I'm in Maryland, and there was an incident involving black males and AI. This has been an ongoing topic of discussion on the COWS, but there's a black male student at the Kenwood High School in Baltimore County in Maryland who was identified by the AI weapons detection system called OmniAlert as possessing a gun. This black male student, his name is Taki Allen. He had just finished football practice, and he and a handful of his teammates were outside waiting to get picked up. And he was eating Doritos. And the AI detection system identified this as a gun. And so the OmniAlert notified the Department of School Safety, and that individual notified the Baltimore County Police, who arrived and approached the students, who were all black males from what I could tell, and with guns drawn, and made them get on the ground. and turned out he was not holding a gun, but he was holding, like I said, a bag of Doritos, and the system had identified that as a gun. The grandfather of the student, said he's still unnerved. He thinks about what could have happened to his grandson, and then, had one of the boys flinched. God forbid one of them ran or dropped his phone or flinched after 8 cars pulled up with guns blazing. Davis said, "My grandson would have been killed on the spot, dead. My wife can't even talk about that. She breaks down and starts crying." There was, the school has offered counseling to those individuals who were confronted by the police and anybody else who might have that. But, I mean, I don't know. I would think that is, from my perspective, I think that's devastating to have, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just eating a bag of chips, and these police officers come and point guns at you. I mean, I don't know how much. I don't even know. Could you even return to school the next day? But that's. I mean, those kind of things happen in the system of white supremacy, and I just hope that the mental needs, the emotional needs of these students are properly addressed, because that's terrifying. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Wow, that is black male privilege. Blame Columbine. They have so many reports talking about how black children have been devastated as a result of Dill, Reb, the white school shooter. Like, people have done whole dissertations and big chunky reports. You got to have these AI systems. Got to have the lockdown drills and zero tolerance policies that they put in effect in schools that are supposed to prevent Dill and Reb, and it just ends up being a whole lot of black people getting suspended and, criminal records, sometimes police called and all. Like, whoo, man. I had not heard about that. I'm on the opposite side of the county from Maryland, but wow. That is, and we have talked a lot about that, the AI systems, and just being a different way that racism, white supremacy is manifest. This is from CBS News. Body camera video shows Baltimore County officers react after gun scare determined to be bag of chips. It says, after confirming there was no weapon, and apparently officers arrived at the school with guns drawn, and they not only took the one privileged black fella down with the bag of Doritos, they took all of his whole posse down, because, which they all look kind of similar, and, oh, man. But they says, after confirming there was no weapon, the Department of School Safety and Security reviewed and canceled the initial alert. Just so you guys are aware, basically the cameras around the system, they pick up on things that look like guns. I guess just the way, I can't even say it. I'm sorry. I can't even say it. Let me try again. Woo. Just so you guys are aware, basically, the cameras around the system, they pick up on things that look like guns. I guess just the way you were eating chips, Doritos, whatever. It picked it up as a gun, an officer explained. What? What? Was this at a press conference? Were there a billion follow-up questions? How does one eat a Dorito in a manner that it looks like a gun? I've been a tubby black dude in my life. and I ate my share, your share, probably somebody else's share too, of Doritos. I like the Cool Ranch ones, the regular ones too. Man, I will munch on a Dorito. I never thought, ooh, better be careful now. You up here crunching. That almost looks like a Glock. I never in my wildest dream considered that. What? And now that's one got non-Clemson grad in my mind. He said, nah, I don't worry about no AI taking my job. And some of this I think is malarkey. Like, it's been greatly overblown. The AI sophisticated system that's going to take all our jobs thinks Doritos. Uh-oh. He got Saturday night special. Uh-oh. Get him. Isn't that the same thing? That even I do have to even pause again, though, because have we heard this before where they say, oh, I thought Leroy had a gun. Oh, that was a Butterfinger. Dang. Well, I shot him 15 times, but I mean, I thought it was a guy. How was I supposed to know it was a candy bar? I shot him 15 times. Oh, man. He had a cell phone. Oh, dang. Man. You know, it was dark. You know, I got a slight stigmatism, and it look, you know, his cell phone is black, and Leroy is black, and it was a lot of blackness. You know, it looked like he might have could have been a 48, maybe. Just saying. Just saying. I might have heard this one before, maybe. Just maybe. Whew, man. Let's see. Blackmail privilege? Oh, and he said Maryland. I forgot. I can add one to the mix because you can't play everything. So I can add one for Maryland. Pasadena man on probation accused of threatening to kill Maryland judges. Authorities arrested. This is in Glen Burnie, Maryland. Authorities arrested a Pasadena man on accusations he threatened to kill Maryland judges, according to the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office. Joseph Scardina, white man suspected racist, was arrested Tuesday while in violation of his probation for a similar conviction last year after he posted a video on his YouTube channel threatening to execute a judicial officer. As we take all these threats seriously, court records show Scandina pleaded guilty in September 2024, spent 58 days in prison and several months at a state mental hospital because he's got brain problems. It's not race soldier. End stage white supremacy. Since that conviction, Scandia has been in and out of custody for more than a year after he was released over the summer. Reports of probation violations started populating Scandina's case file that detail new threats he's accused of making against judges and other officers. Dude, wait a minute, let me keep it. Investigators said the threats came in person, online, in text messages, and over the phone. Come on. According to reports, Scandina recently told his parole officer over the phone, if you come down here, I'm going to kill you, end quote. Now I want you to tell me what Leroy could do all this. You pick the state. You pick the part of the world, in fact. According to reports, Scandia recently told him, and while attending outpatient treatment, the center said Scandina made threats on all judicial officers in Maryland, saying, I'm going to kill all the judges. I'll just stop there. I cannot imagine any world where if this was Leroy, Jamal, Devontae, Lakeisha, I cannot imagine any universe where this would be, oh man, Lakeisha just got, mental problems and things. And, we just need to get her the help that she needs. And she just got a little teaspoon of drapetomania. But once we get her meds right and we get her in the facility, get her a little therapy, she's going to be right as rain. And we're going to stop all these threats. What? How'd he only get 50? What does it mean to be white? But it's lots of things. This fella right here, why was he not flagged? The AI system did hey, we got repeat offender, recalcitrant. He threatening judges. That's like big terrorist threats. What, And we get to that later. We got these Dorito eating thugs. I mean, we gotta go. Woo, man, what does it? Blackmail privilege? Blackmail privilege? Let's see. Other folks who dialed in, the number again, 720-716-7300, the code 564943, pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. Do not wait till the last minute if you have thoughts, comments to share. Let's see. Did we miss anyone? Got everyone for the time being. I'll check, see if other folks have anything that they want to share. I will say with the segment on Antifa being labeled a foreign terrorist organization, I've been saying for the longest, they said it throughout that segment, what does that even mean? How do you decide who is in Antifa? You just get to go and pick someone who, oh, well, I don't agree with your policies, you're Antifa. You just go, a black person who says they're trying to produce justice, Antifa. I could easily see how that could work, and especially, well, who's in charge of the Antifa? They just pick a non-white person. Boop, you've got on it, Obama, anybody, and then we just go from there. And Antifa, boop, lock them up. Antifa, lock them up. Easily see how that could work, and they could do that with a whole lot of labels. That's what they were. I said. Mau, Black Identity Extremists, Black Liberation Army. They could do that. Black Lives Matter. They could do that with a whole lot of labels. And just the masters of name calling, racist white supremacists. Nobody does it better. Really, that's the way that I think of that. That's just name calling. All that is. Antifa, Antifa, Antifa. And now, it's not just your Antifa, you're a terrorist. Just something I would be mindful about. And they said in that segment talking about Antifa, they said that this strategy, they will stretch the truth. Metaphor. What does that even mean? You mean lie? Oh, okay. Now we got master deceivers. They have so many creative phrases and ways to avoid saying white people are going to lie. They're just going to start making up whatever they want to and fabricating, and anybody is about to be Antifa, like anybody. Just say that. White people are about to start lying, and I mean heavy-duty lies. Stretch the truth. And even, in fact, they don't say lie. They find a way to get truth in there. This ain't got nothing. What does stretch the truth even mean? This is on NPR, and then they'll turn around and criticize us and say, oh, you Negroes, you don't speak proper English. You get your diction together. You got too many gerunds and all the rest. Stretch the truth. I don't say no craziness like that. Stretch the truth. That's what they teach you to say in journalism school? Can you not say lie? Did they say that in journalism school? Don't say lie. You have to figure out a creative way. Fudge. Play with the numbers. They have so many. This is not a game. Fudge. Where's the chocolate at? You mean lie. That's what we're talking about. And lying so that people might get criminal charges, like being called or accused of being a terrorist. That's serious. Especially if, what am I doing? Maybe just talking about racism. Oh, you're an Antifa terrorist. You and Obama. Anyway, folks can let me know as well if you think Mondani, is this a white fella? Yay? Nay? I am not sure. I don't know. I mean, has he been asked that on the trail? Has someone asked him, is he a white person? Like, that would be, significant. Just get his response on that. Are you a white dude? And all that, you're being accused of being the gentrification king. Are you even white? That could nip a whole lot in that. But hey, I'm not even white. What do you mean, gentrification king? Any hoodles. Let's see. Make sure. Give folks like 2 minutes, see if they have additional thoughts to share. I know we will be here for Neutralizing Workplace Racism on Thursday. I'll make sure I read. We had a federal employee who shared. I forgot to include it for Thursday, but we'll be here Thursday for that. And Friday, we are beyond the halfway point. Evelyn Williams, inadmissible evidence. I really forgot how much she talked about COINTELPRO and them stalking like her family, FBI agents coming and questioning her, the whole cadre of white lawyers who, oh, I want to take every Black Panther case and every Black Liberation Army case. And, oh, yeah, I'll do a Asada's case too. Oh, yeah, like, what? I was not even aware of this because I think that also is a part of COINTELPRO, although she didn't explicitly say that. Seems she had some suspicions about what their motives were, but I think this is a part of COINTELPRO too. Who could better get a bunch of attorneys to go in? Now we can really do some high-level snooping because we're a part of the defense team. Play both sides. Anyway, but Evelyn Williams, Friday, I've learned, and this is my second time reading the book, and have learned even more. I'm going to see if I can get the Daily Mail. One, I'm going to learn because now I know about 3 different incidents in New Jersey State where they ran all the Negras out of town. Not 1, 3. And I've been complaining the whole book because she spent so much time talking about Assata Shakur and Evelyn Williams' family's connections to Wilmington, North Carolina. And I said, dang, she didn't even include the Wilmington Purge. Man, it's so many purges in this book. Maybe you couldn't mention them all. Purges of Black people. In fact, she gets that trial moved from Middlesex County, New Jersey to Morris County, New Jersey. Morris County, New Jersey is a racially restricted region, and they got whole books, chunky, written by racist suspects talking about how Morris County became a racially restricted region. They booted out the Negras, got an exact date, time for it, and everything. It's even before the Wilmington Purge, because that was 1898. They kicked the Negras out of Morris County, New Jersey in 1894. Wrote a whole book about it. I don't remember even focusing. I hadn't read James Lowen's book when I read this the first time, so I didn't have a grasp of, Sundown Town and all that. Rereading some books can be very informative. Did we miss someone? But I heard rustling. Did we miss commentary?
May I be heard real quick?
Octavius, yes, sir.
Just have just something I thought was constructive to add. I've been reading one of the books that was suggested to me by a friend. It's called On Writing Well by William Zenser, Vinsser. This book is basically in regards to writing, journaling, prose, short stories, anything that you're trying to write. But I highly suggest in reading it because at the same time you're learning how to write, it gives you so much in-depth information on what is good writing and what, classifies as somebody that's communicating well with their words rather than somebody, that's doing a bad job at it. I really think it's important to actually take a look at it, to just read it, not just for your personal journaling, but also for, again, reading not only articles from the news, but fiction and other prose and other books that you may be interested in. Again, it's On Writing Well by William Zenser. And it's really very helpful so far, absolutely. That'll be all for me. I'll mute my line.
Lots of editions of that book, so I guess it's very popular. Yes, we could all do that. I think that's been suggested before for attempted counter-racists to work on our professional writing, which does not include memes and WTF and all the rest of it, but work on serious writing that could be for the workplace or journaling about counter-racism science and how we solve this problem, but to refine, improve our writing, which may help with things where I say like racism is permanent. Again, not a critique of Dr. Curry at all. Who am I? But back of the bus, bottom of the boat, privileged black male. But just saying, if racism is permanent, then there's no need for us, Dr. Curry, and all of us to do any work to solve this problem. I think more accurate, white people are dedicated to practicing racism. We are going to have to change our behavior to solve this problem, because white people, they are committed to racism forever. Undying dedication to mistreating dark people. Their behavior evidences that all over the world. Anyone else? Do we miss anybody else? Everyone good?
Mr. Renegade, may I ask a question and offer something? Have you had Dr. Katherine Johnston on your program to discuss her book, The Nature of Slavery, Environment, and Plantation Labor in the Anglo-Atlantic World?
No, sir.
Okay. This came up on, I think, a social media feed that I'm part of. If anyone is interested, on November 3rd at 12 noon Eastern Time, there is a Zoom call where she's going to discuss her book. The John Carter Brown Library, they put on these, Zoom talks. And just a brief information about her book, it says, Katherine Johnston's The Nature of Slavery, a superb contribution to a growing literature on the history of race, medicine, environments, and slavery. Carefully researched and thoughtfully argued, the book unsettles basic assumptions about the origins of ideas about biological race, in quotes. It will be a must-read for years to come, according to Suman Seth, author of Difference and Disease, Medicine, Race, and Locality in the 18th Century British Empire. Now, I've not read this book. It came out in 2022, but like I said, I saw this recently in a social media feed and thought it was interesting. She is a doctor at Montana State, the professor there. So that's all. Thank you.
Montana State. I think that's close to Wyoming. Might even be contiguous. I have to look at the map really quick, and I know for sure that is another racially restricted region. I bet she does not. Yes, it is contiguous with Wyoming. I know they don't have no whole lot of niggers in Montana. That is fascinating. But no, I was not familiar with her book, The Nature of Slavery. I was not. Well, where is the talk? Where is that at? Which university? Or
it's a Zoom call, and I can forward you the link.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm ignorant. Much obliged. The Nature of Slavery, Environment, and Plantation Labor. Get the whole title since I have the book here in case folks want to get something non-fiction. The Nature of Slavery, Environment, and Plantation Labor in the Anglo-Atlantic World. Have to check this one out, see if she has any. Maybe, I guess we could cheat. We can listen to the talk and then see if she inspires us. Oh, okay, this came out in 2022, so it's been out a little while, but still relatively new. We'll maybe check out the talk and then see if we're inspired to read. Or, since I guess we have a little bit of time, if you get the book, you can flip, check out a few pages or so, and then it's not even that long. It's 280 pages, so it's not too long. But yeah, we could check it out and see what she has to offer. Fascinating. Oh, and this is even beyond the U.S. I don't know if we have folks who are into the ADOS, and I'm African American. It looks like she does expand this beyond. Nigras is nigras. I said you would kind of get I could see how one might be left with that impression if you kind of study what racists do. Kind of seems like nigras is nigras. That seems like way she wrote this book. Nigras is nigras. Nigras is nigras when we get down to it. Anyway, we'll check it out and see. It looks like she might be classified as white, but I don't know. Just learning about all this today. Did we miss anybody else? Make sure. will soon. Got everybody. I thought they did say towards the end that the white people have been, what shall I say, inspired to do more violence. I almost thought they were going to say emboldened again, but they did not. Any hoodles. At minimum, we will be here on Thursday and then Friday, neutralizing workplace racism, and then the book club. I had the listeners' email ready to roll for their federal employment experience, but I waited a little too late, so I'll make it the first thing that we share for Thursday. Yes, Thursday, neutralizing workplace racism. Normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Much obliged for folks tuning in, hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Sobriety would be best. That's such a big part of the whole Her Day season, because they do all that debauchery for Halloween where they gorge on all the sugar, and then if you're a little bit older, then you can do some alcoholic drinks and all that goofiness, and then just continue with all that, because you got to do drinks for Thanksgiving, and then they have all the parties leading up to that, and then the whole month of December they got to do happy hours here, and holiday get-together here, and holiday get-togethers for work, and drink, and eggnog with some rum and all this. And come on, man, they already told us, man, more than one drink per week, carcinogenic. We had folks who were talking about going out to walk together and maybe make some friends. Like, we already seen that. We do not need any more, oh, we're going to hang out together and have a gin and tonic or Coke and rum. And mad dog, we seen all that. That's how we end up with this Saturday night. I'm black and I'm dangerous. Dangerous to other black people who also have imbibed Mad Dog 2020. We've seen all of that. Drink more water. Sobriety would be best. We need high-functioning brain computers, since white people are not going to quit racism. Creator, remind us to stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us to stop name-calling people classified as black. Remind us to maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste other non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.